Hey, tension on deck.
Hey, good evening, Ron. How you doing today on this another cold and wintery day here in the lovely state of New York?
Yes, quite cold. Uh, as we had. Usually, you're the one taking the weather with you. This time, you brought the cold weather when you came to New York, and I uh, I took a trip down south to Florida to avoid the weather. Actually, it wasn't. It was planned, so it wasn't to avoid the weather. I actually had to change my plans. Originally, I was going Thursday to Sunday. I never would have made it home on Sunday, so we
Uh,
changed our plans to Friday to Tuesday. So yeah, but yeah, bitter cold. Thanks to my good neighbors for taking care of my property when I was away, and I gave him the code to my garage so we can use the snow blower, take care of it, and so that was good. Had a great time down in sunny Florida. It was 86 degrees, but then it went 50 degrees the day yesterday when I left, and
yeah, there
they're
was
in for a cold
32
spell.
today.
Yeah, they're in for a cold spell. So we got a bunch of people in the chat already. Said 92 Charlie, good morning. Of course, our good friend Hassan, the original Mo. How are you, Mo? Good to see you on here. Terry Manane, good evening. Mike Freed. Audie saying hello to you.
Marty, my brother.
Stephen S., very good friend of the network. Amazing Ant, how are you?
And
So, yeah. And of course, the gift that keeps on giving, unfortunately, when it comes to content. This another tragedy in Minneapolis, another shooting involving federal agents. This time it was the Customs and Border Patrol. It wasn't ICE, even though everybody keeps saying ICE because that's just like what they say. Customs and Border Patrol was sent to Minneapolis actually in support of ICE to do their operations because the local law enforcement were not protecting the ICE agents. And we've talked about this on our shows. It's been talked about on the entire network, how local law enforcement, we'll get into it a little bit more later, but how local law enforcement is not supporting the federal agents when it comes to safety. They're not even supporting their own communities when it comes to community unrest, where we've talked about and we've said, you know, even their rhetoric is we believe, fueling the flames of the unrest against the ICE agents with the rhetoric that they talked about. And again, we'll show a video in a little while to that. But another tragedy where the Customs and Border Patrol agents, I'm sure everybody on this platform has seen the video. We're going to play the video a little bit later and then get into it. We'll give our take on it also. But also talk about what the federal government is saying with Kristi Noem, even President Trump, the Customs and Border Patrol chief, what he had to say about it. And, that's Chief Bovino. Cash Patel's chiming in on it on social media. So we'll get into all of this and we'll talk about it. But what were your initial thoughts, when this all hit?
Well, just it's insanity that you think, right? Local police, local law enforcement always have a better rapport with protesters. They're better trained. They understand the dynamics of the area that their demonstrations are in. They know the exits, the all the egress. So they would have been much better off to have local law enforcement, protecting them, which isn't unheard of, right? That's a protest. Have local law enforcement protecting them, and then you wouldn't have called for this, the border police, ICE, or anybody else to have to not only do their job but then get involved with that. I just think when they withdrew completely, it set a whole nother tone, and it's not only does it set a tone to them that they're on their own, which we, as law enforcement, you never want to tell another law enforcement officer that, hey, you're on your own, good luck, and walk away. I don't think any of us would have done that. I don't think you would have done it. I wouldn't have done it. But you also tell to everybody else in the community that, yeah, go hog wild, do whatever you want. And I think that's what happened. And when you do that, I think you've lit the flame, and you've literally, have caused total chaos because there is no control, and you don't know. Listen, I maybe you have done it too, but I've done patrol in different precincts, right, as a cop, and I didn't know where the hell I was. I was lost. But the precinct I was in, I knew back and forth. I knew the alleyways. I knew what, fire escapes. I knew everything else from doing anti-crime SNU or whatever. But that's what you get. And now that, they withdrew, and these poor guys are out there, guys and girls are out there, not only do they have to enforce with their immigrations, now they're worried about all these protesters coming up to them. So I just think it was definitely total chaos, and it was not fair to them, and it still is, right? Because they're still not there. They're still not doing. Local law enforcement is still washing their hands of it and defending themselves. So I don't know.
Yeah, 100%. And I saw a video online, and John and Eric had played it on their show on Monday, and I didn't have a chance to grab it or even ask John for a copy of it because, like I said, I got home last night, didn't get to start working really on the show until today, and had to watch my daughter earlier. So I literally finished up, like we were talking, 5 minutes before the show started. So hopefully everything goes good. But there's a video of a Bearcat, which, you can explain to the audience what a Bearcat vehicle is.
Yeah, I mean, it's an armored vehicle. It has, level 4 protection, which is the highest level. And some of them, ours had turrets in it, so you could actually pop up on top with pop the cover on the top. The cover of the top would actually has a ballistic shield, so somebody could get eyes on. So one of our ballistic vehicles had a battering ram on it, so you could actually ram a door with it and get all the way up there. So, I mean, it's a great tool, and it's a hard point of cover. You can insert a team anywhere, and you don't have to worry about it. I don't know if you ever YouTube it. Or Google it, you'll see these Bearcats take AK-47 rounds and everything else. So, I mean, they're really phenomenal work. So,
yeah. So there's a Bearcat with federal agents, and again, I don't know what agency, coming down one of the streets in Minneapolis. And there's one or two protesters that are standing in front of it while it's got the LRAD going, the high intensity noise that's it's really harsh on the ears, going loud, trying to get these two protesters out of the way, and they're just standing there, and then the Bearcat's not running them over. He's trying to inch forward,
yeah.
and it's not, they don't want to run them over. And what eventually happens? Everybody else gets emboldened and says, hey, they got this vehicle stopped, let's go. Now the vehicle gets surrounded by protesters who are banging on the Bearcat. They're knocking at the mirrors, breaking the mirror, banging on the vehicle. I mean, they're not going to do real damage to it, and they're not going to get into these offices, but still, they're now trapped there, right? And as you see the video of them on the Bearcat, what do you see? You see a platoon of Minneapolis police officers 50 feet away, doing nothing, standing there in riot gear, but doing nothing, not coming to the aid of these officers. And I'm looking at this video, and I'm feel like screaming at the screen, like, if all they had to do is a couple of one line, right, one squad, maybe 6 officers, go down there and just get these people out of the street and let the vehicle go on its way. Again, sanctuary city laws. Everybody doesn't want to assist in ICE in deportation operations. You're not. That's not assisting them in deportation operations. That's assisting them in staying safe. That's assisting your community from having civil unrest. So instead of sending a few officers down, leadership once again, right? Saying, go down there, get those knuckleheads out of the street, and let this bear cat go on its way and do its job, because they have a federal job. They have things that they have to do, right? So instead of sending them down and just getting them out of the way and doing their job as sworn law enforcement officers, it escalates. So should they be there? The first two? No. Should everybody else get emboldened and come on? No. But that was created by the lack of involvement and the ineptitude of the Minneapolis Police Department, who did nothing, stood by, and just let that escalate. Now, had these officers either called for backup, had backup close by, they get out, they start getting physical and removing people out, and then a confrontation happens, like this happened, with this guy Preddy, right? Then it's the federal government's fault, right? But what it could have been avoided. And what do they say? They say that if they weren't there, right? The left is saying if they weren't there, then this wouldn't be happening. So just have ICE leave. It doesn't work that way. We're not just going to give in because you don't like that the federal government and the federal agencies are enforcing federal law. Again, we here say if it's a sanctuary city law, we're going to abide by the sanctuary city laws. We're not going to assist in the operations themselves. However, how could you, in good conscience, put your head on the pillow knowing that you're not helping another law enforcement officer when their safety is in jeopardy? And you say, oh, their safety is not in jeopardy because they're in the Bearcat. But yet now, if other officers like the Customs and Border Patrol, who are assigned there for their force protection, get involved and get physical, then you don't like that they're getting physical. So it's this whole cyclical thing, where it just goes from bad to worse, and it escalates. Instead of de-escalating the situation, it's just getting escalating. And you could have de-escalated by just going over there and getting those two knuckleheads off the street and letting the bear cat go before everybody else got emboldened. So that's just one example of what's going on. And, it's sad to see. It really is.
Well, I mean, as local law enforcement, your job is to protect, right? Safety. So it's not only the safety of the citizens, it's also safety of the other officers. So, but let's just take the citizen side, right? If they know that there's a possibility of confrontation, there's a possibility of somebody getting hurt, doing all these things, standing in front of a Bearcat, all this, God forbid the guy accidentally hits the accelerator, right? I mean, he could. That's a heavy vehicle, right? You're talking about steel, ballistic steel. That's
huge tires. You get under that tire, you're not coming out the other side alive.
No, and it's the highest level of ballistic protection. So when that runs you over, you're gone. Forget about it. So think about that. So why wouldn't you, as a police chief? I mean, you could talk to the mayor and say, listen, I'm not going to aid them in their execution of immigration enforcement, but what I will aid them is a means to get through the pedestrian. So none of our citizens, right? Not talking about immigration officers or ICE. I'm saying so none of our citizens that we're sworn to protect are going to get hurt. So let's do that. Let's take that. And then what we do, we could slowly move them out of the way. Come on, get back, guys, get back. And your local law enforcement. So we're not helping. We look, just move back a little bit. Let them through. And you talked about the LRAD earlier. The LRAD was a great piece of equipment. And I'm sure when you had your task force and stuff, you may have used it. But there was lawsuits. The city lost lawsuits on that because of hearing impairment. So they didn't even use it. If you see,
maybe I should have went for 3/4 for that instead of a legitimate injury.
There was a guy I knew that got a couple 3/4. Wasn't Chief Hale or whatever got 3/4 from a firecracker from when he first came on the job or something? I don't know. But the LRAD, you see, Sergeant Vega all the time. All he could do now is say the announcements, like you're
Right.
violating and stuff like that. So, but that was a great tool. So yeah, I mean, I don't understand why a mayor, why a police chief, a governor, hey, go in there and help them. The faster they get in there and get through their searches or whatever, then they're going to get out. But like you said earlier, a couple minutes ago, they're not going to get out when you tell them to get out. I mean, look at the autonomous zones, right? When the first one where they were telling police. I mean, that's a tragedy of the United States, because that was allowed to go on. That should have been taken completely away and said, no, there's no autonomous zones. You don't control the zone. Look at the thing that they're trying in Brooklyn. Remember, John and Eric had brought up on one of their podcasts about an area where they only wanted 2 police officers to stand outside of the zone, and they were going to police it themselves. No, that's not how it happens.
In the 7th.
So I mean, they're not looking to help their own community. That's what it seems to me.
Yeah, and I got a text message for a question. Somebody that's not in the chat: is Bearcat overkill even though legal? Well, again, we don't know what the operation is that they were heading to. We don't know what their tactical information was. We don't know if they were going to apprehend a suspected armed or barricaded perpetrator, which is what you normally use the Bearcat for, so that you have, like you said, that level 4 protection. So we don't know. We don't know where the Bearcat was going, because again,
I could also add to that one thing. The Bearcat, while they're going down the street, the Bearcat is a refuge if they start getting fired upon or anywhere. It's a hard point of cover. Okay, the regular vehicles that they have usually don't have hard cover, but if you need to retreat or you need to come up against an armed perp, that's a hard point of cover. You have it with you. It's not. I don't think it's overkill. It's a way to protect the officers. So it's not. I'm not saying they're going in there. There's ports in there. You can stick your guns out and stuff. They're not going in there guns a-blazing, but they're using it for their own protection. So I can't say that it's overkill if they're actually using it to protect themselves, right? So
yeah, we don't know exactly what they use for. I agree. I don't think it's overkill. Listen, what's overkill, and we'll get into this a little bit more. We kind of got ourselves stuck here, but John Latanzio, friend, part of the family, had his interview. Go back and take a look at it. Retired 2nd grade detective from emergency services. I knew John from before the job, on the job. Rob, he worked with Rob also. He says the bigger question is how is it the state and local government will not hand over 1,000 plus illegals in their prison systems? And again, I actually had this conversation today with someone, and with Mandami, who is trying to, say how he is working with the federal government, and how there is a long list of convictions of violent crimes that they will turn the information over to the federal government. Problem is, in New York, these district attorneys are not going to convict people of these violent crimes. They're going to plea them down, especially we've seen, and one of the, I think it was Joanne Ariola, I could be mistaken, tweeted out today also that problem is these district attorneys, especially when they're aware of the ramifications of someone's immigration status possibly being invoked if convicted, will plead them out, if not dismiss the case, to a crime that doesn't fall under those statutes. So when it comes to the sanctuary city laws, there's a specific list of violent crimes if they are convicted, not arrested for, not going through trial, whatever the case may be, pretrial detainment or anything. That's when the sanctuary cities will cooperate with the local, with the federal law enforcement. So
they should give them those 7,000 people. Then you know what happens? That it clogs their system up, and then they get them off the street. Right? Wouldn't that work? But yeah, I mean that's a great point, John. It's just easy. Why wouldn't it be just easier to cooperate them and give them what they came for rather than them putting them on the streets, searching for people and causing havoc in your own, city. Um,
Right. All right. So let's look at, and again, what we're going to do today is, we're going to talk to you about the laws and try. People don't understand. There's been a lot said. We're going to get into who's saying it about this guy showing up at a protest armed with a loaded 9mm and extra magazines. Statements were made. I think they were very premature. I think they were inflammatory. They were obviously false. And we're gonna get into what those laws are. So, but who are we talking about? We're talking about Alex Preddy, right? And he's when you look online and you look at the left, you're going to hear and you're going to see the videos and the pictures of him in his nursing outfit because he was an ICU nurse at the VA hospital, right? Which is all well and good. And I'm not here to bash and to, quote unquote, victim blame Alex Preddy. We're going to talk about the laws of him having possession of that loaded 9mm and interacting with law enforcement. But what I will say is that it was reported yesterday that he has had several run-ins with the federal government, with ICE, and just days before, I think it was 2 weeks before, he was in another confrontation with ICE, interfering with their operations. He got put down to the ground, and he alleges that one of them put their knee in his back and broke a rib. He was documented per their policy, identified, documented as one of these people that's following ICE and getting in the way of ICE. He wasn't arrested at the time, and but it just shows that he is actively interfering and on this, in with this group that's going around and actively interfering with the federal government's operations. So, with that being said, you have anything to say about him at all, Rob?
No, well, I just think I saw that Sleepy Joe brought up a great point. I forgot. I don't know if were aware of it, but these Antifa people have their own quasi central dispatch. And I don't know if you saw that, but they literally they're using emojis, right, to what type of job are you assigned to that day doing demonstration? Are you mobile? Are you a stationary vehicle? They are you medic? Do you have weapons or whatever? I mean, it's literally it's all done, and it seems like it's going all the way back to the lieutenant governor in the state that that person's actually involved in it. So I mean, this I don't know if Preddy was himself involved in this, but there's a whole.
I haven't seen this video. John Latangio just commented that there's a new video of him 10 days prior of him spitting and kicking ICE vehicle, breaking the taillight. It's crazy. He gets put on the ground. So that may be the incident where he had the broken rib. I haven't seen that video, so I will look for it later, John.
Then to be I guess we can get into it, but to actually be talking about carrying a firearm there. I mean, that to me is, so we have issues there to talk about, but overall, him, I mean, I don't know. Don't you have a Hippocratical oath as a nurse to save lives and stuff? I don't know. I don't know what he was really doing there. So, but yeah, his prior history, I guess, he was an agitator at this point, not a demonstrator, right? Obviously, he's getting involved.
Right. And you know what? Listen, it's everybody's First Amendment right to peaceably protest. We've talked about this on the past shows when with the various different demonstrations that have been going on in New York City for the last 4 years, 5 years, 6 years now. But everyone has the absolute right to peaceably protest, but these are not peaceable protests. These are obstructing major thoroughfares. These are blocking businesses. These are interfering with federal agents in violation of U.S. Code 18, subsection 111. They are not peaceably protesting. They are. I think Marlon just sent it to me.
Yeah, he sent it to you. He sent the video.
All right, I'm not going to play it because I haven't reviewed it, so I'm not gonna try and transfer it over. But it's out there, Marlon. If you want to throw the link up. But listen, I lost my train of thought. So you can peaceably protest, but that's not what's going on here. They're interfering with federal operations because they don't like the laws. Okay, and so it's just, it's problematic and it's getting worse. And like you said, let's move on to being armed and going here. So nobody knows what his intentions are. Nobody knows. He's armed. He's showing up. He's showing up at a protest armed with a firearm, and then gets into a physical confrontation with law enforcement while he's armed. So Kash Patel puts out that he's suggesting that it's illegal to bring guns to a protest. Now, that's not a true statement. There are. Let's go into the Minnesota carry law, right? So Minnesota statute, right? Carrying a weapon without a permit is illegal, right? So you can obtain a permit to carry a pistol, right? If you don't, it's a misdemeanor and it's a felony the second time around. But he was a licensed concealed carry holder, right? So that gun was not an illegal firearm. He was legally allowed to carry that firearm. Now, other things that are being said out there, well, he didn't have his ID on him. He wasn't carrying his ID. He wasn't carrying his permit on him. So that shows ill intent. I'm going to disagree. And again, listen, my opinion is not going to be very popular today, I don't think, with some of our regular audience. We didn't even get a chance to really talk about the show. So, I'm not sure where you stand on certain things. So we're going to have our own debate, which is fine, which is great. Which makes let's go. All right. So, but it is what it is. I have a lot of problems with the way that the government and the agencies have handled the situation. I don't like this shooting. However, we're going to get into it, where I don't think that I think in the long run, my long and the short, getting ahead of ourselves and everything else, long and the short of it, we're going to break down the video in a bit. We're going to go over the specific laws that govern it. I think, to use the phrase, it's lawful but awful. And I think in the long run, even though today the two ICE agents were placed on administrative leave, I don't know if that's standard operating procedure like it is in the NYPD. If you're in a fatal shooting, you're on administrative assignment to the patrol bureau for a minimum of 3 days. I don't know if that's standard operating procedure, but today they were placed on administrative leave. I think in the long run, when this all plays out, as ugly as it is, and it is ugly, I think it's going to be justified. So, but the fact that he didn't have his permit on him, He didn't have ID on him. All that is, it's administrative. The fine for this offense, it must not exceed $25. So it's not this big deal that he was carrying his gun and he didn't have his ID and his permit. People say that because he didn't have it, he was there for nefarious reasons. He's carrying a gun. He has no way to identify himself. He has no way to prove that he's a pistol license carrier. The citation gets dismissed in court, right? Or in the office of the arresting officer. So if they lock him up, say they would have locked him up and he had no ID on him for that gun. They bring him in and he's able to prove that he's a licensed pistol carrier. He doesn't even get a citation. The citation must be dismissed if the person demonstrates in court or in the office of the arresting officer that the person was authorized to carry the pistol at the time of the alleged violation. So that argument that he had nothing and he didn't have his ID on him, I think it's completely irrelevant. What do you think?
I disagree with you. I mean, could it actually be just like you just said that it was totally a mistake on his behalf that he forgot his ID? Absolutely. But to me, it could add a little bit of nefarious type of behavior. You know, did he say that I'm not going to bring my ID? We'll never know that, right? Because we'll never, he's not here now. So we'll actually never know that. But to me, if I'm going to go out and do a robbery, I'm going to do something bad, I'm probably not going to bring my ID with me, right? Every time I take my gun out with me, I do the pat down on myself, right? Okay, do I got my holster? I got my gun, got my wallet, got my ID. That's just what we did, right? This is similar to what when you go on patrol, right? In patrol, you used to always tap your gun belt just to make sure, because I've told this story in the past. You know, there was a time where I walked down Ryer Avenue in the 4-6 precinct and my gun was in the gun locker. So it happens. But after that, you learn, right? You do your check. So could there have been something? Yeah, it absolutely could be. Being that what you just explained was, very important, because, hey, it's just an administrative violation. It gets dismissed. So it's, they're going to find out he's a lawful gun owner. And I don't have a problem with him carrying his gun, right? He's a lawful gun owner. And it's his Second Amendment right, which I'm a big advocate of, and he's allowed to do that. The problem is just like when you and I still do it to this day, right? When I get pulled over by state police, whether it's the Florida State Police, whether it's the New York State Police, apparently it appears that I get pulled over a lot. But anyway, when I do, the first thing I do with my hands on my wheel, I say, I'm carrying my gun with me. I'm a licensed gun owner, and my gun is on my right side because I'm a righty. So that's it. That's what you want to do. In Florida, the law states that you really don't have to tell them you have a gun until they ask you, right? If they ask you, do you have a gun? Then you are obligated to tell them. So that's fine. But if I was at a demonstration, even if I was just there recording and I was confronted by police, the first thing I would do is say, officer, I have a firearm on me. It's on my left, right side. I just think that if you don't say that and just worry about the video and I'm recording and get between somebody that's being confronted by the police and a police officer, and don't say, I mean, I don't want to get shot, right? I don't want to get, we've had blue on blue, right? With off-duty cops, with on-duty cops and anti-crime and everything else. You do not want to do that, right? So I don't know. I just think that, he knew something was, he was doing something nefarious, in my opinion. And to get involved and to have a gun on him, constitutionally allowed to. But my problem is he didn't identify the fact that he has a gun. And then when I look at that, then I say he didn't have his ID with him. So it's a purely speculation, right? It's purely speculation. I don't know if it was a nefarious thought or it was something that he was doing. But when you do something like that and you're armed and you confront the police and you're there for a demonstration, I don't know. To me, that when they say if it quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. That's my opinion. I'm not saying it's right, but
right. Listen, this is our perspective, right? It's a podcast. It's the executive perspective. We're giving our perspective of what we think about it, and that's another thing. And then Michael M is saying, Ron, he was fighting with the ICE agents, which clearly shows his intent. Do they wait until he shoots? Not saying that at all. We're going to get into breaking down the video in a little bit, but him being armed and him interfering with the police has nothing to do with him being armed, because he never did display his weapon like was alleged. Is it smart? Again, part of our topic title is, constitutional carry, common sense, right? He has the legal right to have that firearm. It's his Second Amendment right, right? Is it smart to go to an area where there could be confrontation? There probably will be confrontation. You've been involved in confrontation in the past, so there's even a higher likelihood that you will personally be in some type of confrontation, right? Because we just showed, we talked about it, and John Latanzio gave us the link for the video, or Marlon put the link out, that he's been involved in confrontations in the past, gotten violent, struck and broke an ICE agent's vehicle. Here, we're going to show the video where he does get physical and physically interferes with the ICE agents. So yeah, I am not saying that they have to wait until he shoots. We'll get into it. We'll get into what our perspective is.
I got a question.
We got to remember, one second, Rob. We got to remember that what we're doing is Monday morning quarterbacking, which is what we do a lot, right? We're going to look at this. We're going to look at it from different angles. We're going to look at this from frame by frame, and that's what everybody's doing. And unfortunately, that's not the legal standard that the Customs and Border Patrol are going to be held to. Okay? They're not going to be held to that. So the people that are on the left that want to sit and break it down frame by frame, and people, don't take me wrong. I'm saying that I believe that these Custom and Border Patrol agents ultimately will be found to have justifiably discharged their firearms. So we'll get into that again, like I said, in a little while. I just, it doesn't sit right with me. I don't like it, but I don't have to like it. I wasn't there. I wasn't in the mind of the officers at the time. I didn't perceive the threats that they may have perceived that caused them to discharge their firearm. So I'm not saying that. Right now we're laying out what the laws are, what the responsibilities are of people that are carrying firearms, at protests. That's the portion of the show that we're at. Okay? Again, I agree with you, Rob, whereas it's not smart to bring a firearm to a location that you have a high probability of getting into confrontation. And if you remember what you were going to say, because I cut you off and I kept rambling. So
I got it.
Go ahead.
So my one point right now is that I question, and I don't know the answer, and I don't think it's been publicized, but when his first encounter with the police where he broke a rib, was he armed?
Yeah.
And if he wasn't, what caused him to think that he should now at this point grab his licensed firearm and carry it with him? And I'd also be curious to know is, did he actually have his ID on him the first time he was arrested or confronted by the ICE? Because now they've been taking pictures of everybody, right? They've been getting information on people. So if this was his second go around, maybe he wasn't going to bring his ID because he didn't want to no, we don't want them to know it was his second go around. He would give another a bogus name or whatever. So those are a few of the questions that I throw out there, is to say this is why I think his intent was to cause harm, to cause confrontation or whatever. And unfortunately, like I by no means think that the border patrol agents did anything wrong. I mean, I guess we'll get into it. There may be, like you've said in the past, we've heard a lot of other people say in the past, lawful but awful, right? I mean, that's the terminology that we hear a lot. So I just wonder about those instances, and maybe that will come out, because if I was a grand jury, whether a federal grand jury or even a state, if I had heard information like that he was previously arrested, he previously had his ID on him, he previously was not armed, and now all of a sudden things have changed. I'm trying now. We try to get into his mindset. So, but we talk about legalities again. I agree wholeheartedly with you, 100%. He is allowed to carry that firearm.
Yeah.
So
We're going to get into the duty informed, but I just want to, Jacqueline Maj, the minute he resisted arrest, he was unlawfully carrying a firearm. I'm going to disagree with you there, because he's not unlawfully using the firearm. You can be lawfully carrying a firearm, but if you use the firearm in an unlawful manner, it's criminal possession of a weapon. Just because you legally are allowed to carry it doesn't mean you're legally allowed to use it any way you want. But the fact that he was resisting arrest, I don't believe makes that an unlawful carry. And if you want to hop over into YouTube,
yeah,
because you're on Facebook, so you're not seeing, or unless I put them up, and when I put them up, and sometimes I'm putting them up a little behind the conversation because I'm involved in the conversation. It's a self-produced show. Jump on over into Facebook, into YouTube, and you can get involved in the interactive chat with the other viewers. So, because we got a great conversation going, I knew it was going to be a lively conversation today. So let's
wait. There is some laws that it's in the New York State penal law that if you're carrying a gun and you commit a certain felonies that you have, if you're in possession of a gun, there's an added charge there.
Right.
So maybe
Right,
that's
I
what
don't think
maybe
that
that's what.
resisting arrest.
No, that first of all, that's a misdemeanor, right? And I believe it had to be at least a felony, and I'm not sure a specific. I thought it had to be like a violent felony. So,
Yeah. And Michael M. and somebody else had said it, I think before, was this suicide by cop? Was he intentionally provoking physical contact with ICE agents? I don't believe so, because he never displayed or reached for the firearm, and we'll get into that in a little bit. We'll get into the video in a little bit, John. All right, so you brought up a point about duty to inform, and you said in Florida, Florida is a state where your duty to inform is only when asked by a law enforcement officer. So there's the map, right? And there's 3 different levels, all right, for duty to inform an officer that you're carrying a concealed weapon, right? You in the red states, it's you inform if you're asked. And as Rob said, there's Florida, there's New York, right? And then there's Minnesota up top. Okay. And then you got to cross, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee, Virginia, Montana, Oklahoma, Arizona, Wyoming, Oregon, Washington. So those are the states that you only have to, by law, inform. The blue states is you have a duty to inform as soon as you have contact with law enforcement. And the gold states, there is no duty to inform at any time, even if someone, the law enforcement asks you, you could say, I don't want to respond, I don't want to answer. So, and as you can see by the list, and I just ran it down, these are the states where you only have to disclose if your officer specifically asks you. So that gives you the legality of whether he was obligated to inform law enforcement once he became engaged with them to tell them, hey, I have a gun. Like Rob said, the smart thing to do when he went over there initially to assist the female, and again, we can debate what his intentions were when he went over to the female that was pushed down by the Border Patrol officer. Should he have said, I'm armed? He absolutely should have said he's armed. Right? But he didn't. And then he got into a physical confrontation and things went sideways fast. Right? There's another debate that's going on out there that says he's not allowed, and this is another thing that Kash Patel said, right? He's not allowed to carry a firearm at a protest, even if he's a licensed pistol holder. And again, there are 25 states that have adopted this policy where there's no, you can't have guns at capitals and demonstrations, right? And zoom in on the map a little bit. These are the states in blue that say you cannot carry a firearm at a demonstration. And so they are restricting your Second Amendment rights. They are telling you even when you're permitted to carry a firearm, right? And the exception is active and retired law enforcement. In New York, at least, that's the exception. But if you're just a pistol,
is Texas. Texas really surprises me because Texas, you're obligated to tell them you're carrying, and you're also allowed to carry at these certain locations. That kind of surprises me, but yeah, I think. And Stephen S. has a good point. Is DC in there? I don't see. Is that? I wonder what the the information about DC. If you have to obligated to report, or if you're actually able to carry at demonstrations. That's an interesting question. I don't know. I didn't see it on the chart there, so I don't know.
Yeah, no, I don't either. I don't even see it there. I don't even see DC in the chart there.
No, but maybe they fall under different laws because they're really not a state, So,
so John Latangio and also someone else in the chat that said in that video you can see the gun in a holster, so he was carrying it at that other incident where he was injured.
Oh, okay.
So John put out a post on his X about this carry conceal and the law about not being able to carry at protests in New York. And this is a graphic that he put up with it, right? So section 26501-E, criminal possession of firearm, rifle, or shotgun in a sensitive location, right? Which is any gathering of individuals to collectively express their constitutional right to protest or assemble. So that's a Class E felony. So these locations, sensitive locations, right, are also churches and other places of assemblage. So, it's the same thing here in New York. Even if you're a licensed pistol carrier, you cannot bring a pistol and carry it if you're going to be at a protest, right? The Times Square is another location, right? It's a gun-free zone. It's on the list, right? That the city council put out. It's ridiculous. So that's the law. Go ahead. Well,
no, it cracks me up. It's a gun-free zone, but people still get shot there. You know, it just cracks me up. You can name anything you want, a gun-free zone, in this zone or whatever, and stuff still happens. To keep people that have the authority to carry a gun out of an area like Times Square and say you're not supposed to carry in there is ludicrous, in my opinion. That's where you want. That is major tourist hub of the, I'm going to say, the country, for crying out loud. And you're going to tell me that
World.
lawful gun owners are not allowed to carry in there. So what does that tell me? If I'm a bad guy, the best place to rob somebody is in that area, because I know nobody's going to have a gun and shoot me. You know, it's just ludicrous to put those signs. It's like,
that's only restricting people that are legally carrying firearms.
yeah,
Those are the ones that you want to have a firearm.
right.
I'm getting a notification that we're having problems on Facebook.
Oh no! All right. Jump over to YouTube, right?
Yeah. If you can't hear me, if we lost our thread, hopefully they jump over to YouTube. Facebook. It's saying there's 2 people watching on Facebook right now. So I don't know if we get kicked off of Facebook for whatever reason. But yeah. So listen, try get me that. It doesn't matter the state. It's the carrier's responsibility to inform any law enforcement officer that he or she is carrying at any given interaction. And I think both 100% agree with that statement. But that's not the law. And again, we talk about it, that a lot of things happen that we have to hold to the standard of the law. If we don't like it, we have to change the law. There's a lot of things that are going on. We don't like what's going on, but we voted for it, right? Or the majority voted for it, because I didn't vote for what's going on in New York, right? But the majority of New Yorkers went to the polls and voted in Mandami, and now we have to deal with whatever comes from his mayoral appointment and his administration. If we don't like it, in 4 years, we can vote him out. That's the way it works, right? If we don't like the law, we have to lobby our legislators and have the laws changed. So these are the laws, and that's what we're trying to get at now. Now, again, versus common sense, right? Constitutional carry. You have the constitutional right to carry. In that state, you can carry a firearm if you have a permit. He had a permit. He had every legal right to be at that demonstration, and he had the right to carry that firearm. He did not have the right to interfere with federal law enforcement. He did not have the right to resist arrest. Whether you believe or not that it's a lawful arrest, you don't have the right to resist arrest if you're being placed under arrest. I am sick and tired of hearing about the masks. We know, we've discussed it. I know your position is that they should not be wearing the masks. And whatever, I'm kind of on the fence with it. However, them wearing a mask covering their nose and their mouth does not make them armed banditos. They are clearly law enforcement. They are wearing vests that say ICE, police, Customs and Border Patrol, whatever the case may be. They are identifiable as the police. So the argument that people don't know they're the police because they're wearing a mask, to me, is a very weak argument.
Well, I also don't believe that the protesters should be wearing masks either. Now, that's the other thing. I mean, years ago there was a law that 3 or more people were masked. You were like, I think, I don't know, for an administrative code violation or something, but there was something on the books. Yeah. So I mean,
or unlawful assembly, maybe. I'm not sure.
I forget what it was, but I mean, it was something you could do enforcement on. You know, obviously they were up to something. 3 people wearing a mask. Nowadays, everybody wears a medical mask because of COVID, and it's the go-to thing that I don't want to get sick, and then all the BS that they say about the mask that was not even true anyway in the long run. But hey, I listen, you want to, if it's cold out, it's like minus something there or whatever. I get you want to wear a mask across your face. I get it, but I don't see name tags. I don't see anything. Yeah, we all know they're ICE. We all know they're immigration, but you know what? I just think that you're supposed to, you know, you know, not hide your identity, right? So, what do you got?
Only because I see the picture. Choo Choo Johnny. I'm on YouTube now. That's Johnny Latanzio.
Oh, okay.
Only because I see his picture with his cheesy mustache. But we love you, brother. Oh, so you want to put up the videos now?
Yeah. Let's throw that video up. Let's go through it.
We're gonna put up the 2 views of the video. I might have to mute it at the end when the shots are actually fired because of YouTube, and we may get a strike against us for violence, even though you don't see him being struck. Listen, it is disturbing, and the second video I'm gonna slow down and we'll break it down a little bit more because I think the angle shows a little bit more of where the problem lies.
Before the video, just
Sure.
a point of order. Like, Amazing Ant is saying that you can, you can carry. Right, that's up there now. That you can carry in Times Square if you're retired NYPD. So
Yeah, I said that we're the exception.
Yeah.
Retired or active law enforcement is the exception to the sensitive location.
What about if you are HR 218 from another state?
Retired or
Anywhere
active
retired or
law
NYPD?
I believe any active or retired law enforcement.
All right. So I would just check that if you're from outside the state
Yeah.
before you go there. You don't want to.
Don't say you heard Ron Layson say it on the Finest Unfiltered. That's not going to cover you. John's sending us something else. What's he sending us now?
Just if you need an attorney, we know who not to pick as an attorney.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, just check. Yeah, like
Yeah, just definitely check into that. All right, so let's take a look at the video for a minute.
People, the fuck is wrong with you? Honestly.
So you see that the ICE or the Customs and Border Patrol agents. Let me take this down. Push the female down because she refuses to get out of the street, so they push her out of the way. People saying that's excessive and that's she's not listening, she's not complying. They push her down. Debate could be given if that's being a little excessive, but you have these people blowing whistles in your face and refusing to comply with your lawful orders. So she was pushed back, fell down to the ground, and then you see Preddy going over and leaning down by her, but putting himself in between the federal agents who are now going to arrest her for interfering with the federal operations. And he is not allowing, and I had to watch the video again because I had a conversation earlier. I just wanted to make sure of where his resistance came in. And where I see his resistance is that he steps in between the female and the agent, and then he's putting his arm up, not allowing the agent to engage with the female. So right there, he's impeding the agent's lawful duties. And so then he becomes now a subject that's going to be placed under arrest by the federal agent, who, after there's a little push back and forth and he stands up, maces him. And it doesn't seem to be too effective. And then they get into a little bit of a tussle. They go down to the ground. Other ICE agents, or I keep saying ICE, other federal agents, Customs and Border Patrol agents, come over to assist because they see that there's a confrontation going on. They go down to the ground. There's a struggle. What we learn and what we'll see clearer in the second video is that one of the agents sees the firearm in his waistband and yells out "gun" several times. One agent actually removes the firearm, and then shots are fired. There were reports that his Sig Sauer firearm is prone to accidental discharges, and that it was believed that once the ICE agent took the firearm from Mr. Preddy, that the firearm discharged, causing the agents to respond with gunfire, thinking they're being fired upon. I don't know that that's the case. I think if that was the case, part of today's preliminary review that came out would have mentioned that, and there is no mention of Mr. Preddy's firearm discharging accidentally or any other way.
But you do hear a single shot, and then you hear multiple shots. So that's the question, right? So I know John Eric had put up on their post about information about that gun. There was actually a video of a guy. He literally just tapped it, and it fired. And I remember years ago we had an accidental discharge with one of our sniper rifles because the trigger pulls are so minimal. The poundage was so small compared to the old. But I think they've changed it with the new Academy. But the Glocks, they went to like a 15-pound trigger pull. I remember I shot at the range. Like I'm not a great shot, but I shot at the range, especially with the 38. When I was at the 38 at the 25-yard line, I don't know where those bullets went. I guarantee you people in City Island were ducking. So, but with the 9mm, before they changed the trigger pull, I shot unbelievably well. I was like balls on dead accurate. It was great. I said, this is a great gun. Then they changed the trigger pull because some people, I think what they did is they inadvertently, while they're cleaning the gun, left a round in it. While they were, instead of, they would rack the gun, drop the magazine, and think that the chamber was clear. There was a few of these bad things. So what does the job do? The job punishes everybody. And they put that 15-pound trigger pull in. And then I was back down to anticipating and pulling down to the left and everything else. But now I think they went back to the lower trigger pull. So, but if there was something problematic with that gun, and and that did go off, I mean, as we all know, in those intense situations, it's what was that? A shot? Somebody sort of have a gun. Somebody hears a shot go off. I mean, it's a very volatile situation there. So, which to me could have all been alleviated had he just mentioned that he had a gun or not got involved in it. But so that's what I think about that. I think that the other video shows a little bit better, right? Them removing the firearm.
Yeah. So we're an hour and 5 minutes in. Let's hit that like, share, and subscribe. Get the algorithm going. We're closing in on 100,000 subscribers on the Finest Unfiltered Network. So thank you to everyone that subscribed. If you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button. I was saying in the group chat with the Finest Unfiltered family, that maybe we can get that love and hit that 100,000 subscriber mark by Valentine's Day. So we're close. We're closing in on 98,000 subscribers. So let's hit that like, share, and subscribe. Share it out with everybody else. We appreciate that, and thank you, Terry, for always reminding everyone to hit that like, share, and subscribe. Right. So yeah. So we're gonna watch the second video, right? And then slow it down a little bit and talk about it. There's questions on both sides. Why did he violently resist, especially especially armed, right? Not notify them that he's armed and get involved in violent confrontations. Now we see that it's been more than once he's gotten into physical and violent confrontations with law enforcement. Was the response from these Customs and Border Patrol agents appropriate, even leading up to the shooting? Again, like I said, I think ultimately in an honest court of law, they're going to be found to be justified in the shooting once they articulate where their objective reasonableness was for discharging their firearm. I think that they can. I think that they can articulate it, and they will be able to articulate it. Doesn't mean that I like their tactics. I think that their tactics are lacking, to say the least. I don't think that they're properly trained. They're sent there for force protection and disorder control, right? To keep crowds off the street and to break up crowds. And I don't see any type of leadership giving direction at any of these scenes that we've seen play over and over, even the ones that are non-fatal or don't involve a firearms discharge. Just confrontation after confrontation after confrontation after confrontation with the federal agents, and all you see is pushing, shoving, spraying with the big cans of mace. Now that's their new tool, and it's effective, right? But there's laws, there's training that I don't think that they're getting. I don't know how well trained they are in localized law enforcement like this, in disorder control like this, in dealing with protesters that are non-violent, right? If they're passively protesting where they're just sitting in the street and blocking, there's a way of doing it, right? We're trained how to remove them from the street, flex cuff them, lift them up, take them out of the street, whatever the case may be. If it's the same thing if they're standing in the way of a vehicle, right? Where I think that the federal agents are, listen, someone wrote a good comment earlier about their fatigue. They're working long hours. They're working in this ice cold weather, which is worse than the hot weather, that they're not getting any support from the public. They're not getting any local law enforcement support. I get all of that. But that's when the leadership needs to step in, take a breath, and reevaluate, right? That's what we always do, right? We put forth a plan, we evaluate that plan, and we pivot and we reevaluate what's not working and what's working. And I don't think this is working. And I think the tactics used by the federal agents are terrible. I think that they're being overly aggressive, which is inciting public even more. And again, they don't have the lead. You don't have to like it. And that it always comes down to that, right? That, it sucks when you say it and you sound callous when you're saying it, but you don't have the right to resist an arrest. I didn't say a lawful arrest. So even if you don't think it's lawful, or the charges get dropped, or the district attorney finds that there wasn't probable cause after the fact, then you can civilly sue if whatever you want to do. But you don't have the right to resist arrest, right? And that's what they're doing. They're violently resisting arrest. They're interfering. We call it obstructing governmental administration. They use U.S. Code 18, subsection 111. It's the same thing as the OGA. They're interfering with the operations of the federal government. And people don't have to like it, but those are the laws. The way they're going about it, I think they are being overly aggressive. And I think you're going to see in the video that one of the agents that's at the head of Mr. Preddy is actually striking him with the canister of mace several times while this is going on. Now, again, does that justify being in fear? Doesn't justify resistance, because everybody could be afraid of the police and say and use that as an excuse. That's why I didn't comply, because I was afraid that the police were going to do whatever. Okay, they're using force because they feel force is necessary because you are not complying. You're not putting your hands behind your back, whether you're burying your hands, whatever the case may be. So, you want to comment, or you want to just go on to the video?
Well, I just one thing I was laughing a little bit because 92 Charlie said that my rounds at the when I was on City Island at the range went into Hart's Island. That was pretty funny. So.
Modern Samurai says certainly not spot on at the range.
Not spot on the range. And then I think Michael M. I think mentioned that you can actually get your firearm changed back to the original trigger pull. And I think Reed mentioned something about the fact that even the job always, right? The job always holds you back. Like even with speed loaders, when they wanted to get, to go to speed loaders. And then I remember when Bratton was in transit, he went to 9mm first. And then when he became the police commissioner, we all went to 9mm. I don't know why the job takes so long, but to get back on topic, you're absolutely 100% right. Don't resist. Your day in court will prove your innocence or your guilt, and it could have financial implications too for you if you were unlawfully arrested. Got a fire going. Hold on, let me.
You want me to take it down? I'll take it down. All right. Well, Rob's away. Bobby G Man 409. There was no accidental discharge. I saw a video. I saw a video that broke down frame by frame the agent fired first. Only shot that was heard, then others followed. And Rob and I are going to discuss that once he gets his. Hopefully, it's just his wife cooking, and that's why his alarm is going off. But we're going to speak about that, and it's called mass reflexive response. So when Rob's back, we'll discuss that. But I agree, and when I looked at the video, I didn't see that. Rob's back.
Somewhat, we still have a little bit of an alarm. That's my stepson's cooking steak, so I guess he needs a little help. So,
and it's too much snow outside to use the barbecue.
I can't use the barbecue. Yeah, so he needs to use the. There's an exhaust fan, but for some reason that wasn't on. So
yeah, why do that?
Yeah, as like Sleepy Joe says, 91 by FD. So
there you go. And I jokingly said to my wife one time, "Is that your timer? Dinner's done."
Yeah,
when the smoke alarm goes off, because we had in an apartment I rented a long time ago, we had a very poorly placed smoke alarm by the kitchen.
Oh yes,
that went off quite often.
There.
I was just saying while you were away, reading Bobby G Man's 409, saying that he saw a video. Somebody else texted me, said they saw the video, also as well, that broke it down. And again, like I said, today a preliminary review was put out by the Customs and Border Patrol. The Office of Professional Responsibility does their firearms discharge reviews. I guess it's like our force investigation, IAB, maybe whatever. So they're the ones that handle it, and their standard operating procedure is 72 hours after an incident, they're going to give a preliminary report to Congress. So they gave that preliminary report, and nowhere in that preliminary report does it say anything about the Glock being, the Sig Sauer discharging. So I think that would be definitely in the preliminary investigation if that firearm was discharged. So I don't think that's the case. I think what happened was, as we briefly discussed, was that, like you said, you hear one round fired, and then the other officer fired, and again, we don't have a breakdown. The preliminary report did not, or at least what I read in the articles that I could find about it, didn't say specifically how many rounds were fired, but several news outlets are saying by breaking down the video, they're hearing 10 shots fired. Doesn't break down who shot how many. It doesn't state how many times Mr. Preddy was hit. Again, that's going to be for an autopsy, because a lot of times you'll have entrance, where it might go through his arm. So you have an entrance, an exit, and then another entrance into his torso. So to be able to determine how many rounds actually struck Mr. Preddy is going to come out in the final review. But yeah, apparently only the Border Patrol agent, the Border Patrol officer are the ones that discharge their weapons. They've both been put on administrative leave, and it appears to be 10 shots that were fired. And again, it's one round fired in succession of the additional rounds, all within a 5-second time frame. So again, you got to take yourself and put yourself into the mindset of these officers when you're looking at this lawfully, not from the human, hindsight 2020 view, which is natural and normal to do. To look at it like that. It's impossible to look at this and go, oh, that's a clear, cut and dry, justified shooting. It's either suicide by police or complete self-defense because he took out his firearm and pointed it at the police, or was literally reaching for his firearm. Because the video does show, I believe, that the firearm was removed from Mr. Preddy prior to the shots being fired. But again, now people are going to argue that, well, he wasn't armed. He was shot and he was unarmed. But again, objective reasonableness of an officer involved in this moment is the legal standard that they're held against them. We'll talk about again in Graham v. Connor, as well as in a new case, Barnes v. Felix from 2025, which brings in what people think are more restrictive to the police, the totality of the circumstances. I believe in this situation, it actually gives more credence to the justification when you look at the totality of the circumstances in this specific case. So let's take a look at the second video. So now, let me back it up just a bit. You see the officer that's on the outside with the cap on and the grayish jacket, that agent. You have several agents on top of him, one at the head, one at the side, one at the feet, one kind of in this agent's way. You see the one agent is striking him several times with the canister of mace, which I think is inappropriate. And then you'll see this male agent in the gray turn around and walk away. Now, when I first saw a video of a different angle and I saw this guy running across the street, I'm like, wow, this guy's running away from a firefight. When that wasn't the case, he's the one, and you'll see in his hand, that removes the firearm from Mr. Preddy's waist. So I'm going to get the video going again and just watch him, and then the shots go off because somebody's yelling "gun, gun, gun" several times. So now the agents are on alert that he's got a gun, and maybe they see his movement towards his waist, even though the gun's in the back. We don't know. I'll put the sound back on because now you see him leaning down, and right now what he's doing is removing the firearm from his, I believe it was in his back. Okay, so now in his right hand is what's believed to be Mr. Preddy's firearm. And I'll back it up again. I can't go frame by frame, but as he's standing up and turning away, the first shot is fired. That's where the confusion, is that the SIG accidentally discharged, causing the other officers to fire. And we believe that that's not the case at this time. But watch, as soon as he stands up and turns away, the first round is discharged. Okay, right there. Now you'll have a succession, and as they're backing away, there's more shots that are fired for a total of 10. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I could be the devil's advocate in this, right? So what we were always taught, and I think John and Eric had also alluded to something of this nature, that where there's one gun, there could be two. Also, when you remove a gun from somebody and their actions reach, right? There was, I forget, I don't know if it's a Graham versus Connor or something. You don't have to see the glint of steel before you discharge your firearm at somebody. So there, where was his hand? What was he reaching? You hear a gunshot. Could it be perceived that, that what was in his hand was a cell phone, was also a firearm? Aren't there also firearms that are actually made to look like cell phones? I mean, I'm just throwing these hypothetical things out. I mean, this will all come out or whatever, how their feelings. But this is, when I look at it, I could say, okay, there's other things there's other factors that you and I and people that are in law enforcement can see, feel in that chaotic situation. So was he compliant at that time? Was he putting his hands behind the back after they removed the gun? I don't know. I don't know where his hands were.
There's no time. If you
Right.
see from the moment that he reaches in and takes the gun, literally 1 second later, watch. Here, he's taking the gun out of his back. And then as soon as he stands up, you hear the first shot. That quick. It's just that quick. So there's no time for them, after he removes the firearm, to comply with any further orders. Now, Chai, get me that, if I'm saying it right, is replying to another viewer. That's why people have to await preliminary reports from experts. There are many videos out there that show SIG going off before that shot. I don't agree. I haven't seen any videos that show that Sig Sauer going off. And again, I think if that firearm was fired, it would absolutely have been put in the preliminary review by the Customs and Border Patrol, because it would have lent more defense to the officers involved as to why they fired, and you'd want to get that out there and try and get ahead of it. So I haven't seen those videos. Somebody else told me about the video that Bobby was talking about that was frame by frame, and said they saw it also. I didn't see it, so I can't speak to it. But I don't see it, and it's not in the preliminary report, the preliminary review. So I'm gonna go with my, again, Monday morning quarterback, that it didn't happen. But again, here's the problem. We're doing this. I'm doing frame by frame. I'm rewinding. I'm replaying. We're saying this. We're saying that. We weren't there. Okay? And when you take the totality and the circumstances, okay, of the situation, what are the totality of the circumstances that we're looking at? Right? You can look at the history of violence against federal agents. They have that as knowledge and personal experience, that they've been attacked in the past, that the social media has been exploding with threats to arm yourself against the agents and shoot the agents and kill the agents and all this other stuff. There's a lot of rhetoric going on out there. You have the prior incidences of law enforcement being attacked, the federal agents. All of this, plus the fact that he's actively resisting, and specifically in Graham v. Connor, it states that one of the things that could lead to objective reasonableness is actively resisting arrest. That is right in the case law. Let me see if I have that.
See, I think one of the other problems is that we can sit here all day and say this and that happened, but without the ballistic reports, without the medical examiner's report, all the things that, where was his arms when he was shot, all of these things that we're subjectively saying will come to light. And then a jury will be able to make the decision on whether or not it was justified. So, in our law enforcement experience, I would think that it is, based on the facts that, we look at it from our perspective, look at it when things are chaotic and things that happen. And we've had experiences right within our own department when there's been chaotic scenes. And things have happened. So just it's our perspective today, right? That's what we do. We give our executive perspective, but the bottom line is he was shot there, and the evidence will speak of itself, right? Because like you said, we have the objective capability of right now of looking at it from all these different views, but we weren't right in the mix grabbing this guy when he's reaching, resisting, fighting, and gunshots are going off. So it's definitely a chaotic scene. So
yes, and they do. Well, let me take the video down. Sorry. The two officers that fired did have body-worn camera. That was part of the review.
That's
so they
good.
were wearing it. But when you're looking at the totality, again, you're taking into consideration the reasonableness of the law enforcement officer, not of you, not of me. We have to try and put ourselves in position of the officers at the time of the incident, not the exact moment, right? Because the law has changed, right? Not changed, but it's been clarified under a new all right, let's bring up I'll bring up Graham v. Connor, right? Which is what we talk about all the time. So with Graham v. Connor, right? The Supreme Court states that the test for reasonableness under the Fourth Amendment is not capable of precise definition or mechanical application. Allowance must be made for the fact that police officers are often forced to make split-second judgment in circumstances that are tense, uncertain, and rapidly evolving about the amount of force that is necessary in that particular situation. So this is what we're talking about, right? In 1989, the Supreme Court ruled that the use of force cases are judged under the Fourth Amendment using objective reasonableness, not hindsight. What are we doing here? Hindsight. We're looking back at it and we're saying, what could have been done different? What should have been done different? Was this excessive? Okay? That's what we're doing. That's not the standard that they're held to. As much as that hurts people's feelings because they see a man who is laying there, who has lost his life, and it's a tragic set of circumstances that, hey, if she wasn't there blocking ICE and he wasn't there protesting, and she would have complied with the order that was given for her to disperse, it never would have happened. If they weren't emboldened by local law enforcement, local government, the mayor, the governor, talking about going out and protesting, maybe it wouldn't have happened. If they would have followed the First Amendment and peaceably protested, it wouldn't have happened. Again, we're back to that, whereas people are going to say that ICE should just leave and it wouldn't have happened. And I'm sorry, to me, that's just not the answer. I don't have all the answers. I don't know, right? But then Barnes v. Felix, right? An excessive force claim under the Fourth Amendment must be evaluated based on the totality of the circumstances, not solely the moment an officer perceives a threat. Justice Elena Kagan authored the unanimous opinion of the court, which, again, unanimous opinion, which vacated and remanded the Fifth Circuit's ruling that had applied a narrower moment of threat analysis. Now, here's the thing is that there's 12 different circuits of the Court of Appeals, and they weren't all working under the same set of standards. Some were saying it was the moment of threat, which was the Fifth Circuit's ruling, and some were looking at the totality of the circumstances. I think it was the 7th and the 9th and the 11th. And now the Supreme Court has said this is the rule, this is the law of the land, that it's going to be looking at the totality of the circumstances. The Fourth Amendment's objective reasonableness standard requires a fact-specific, contextual examination of all relevant circumstances leading up to a law enforcement officer's use of force. While the moment the officer fires a weapon may often carry significant weight, events occurring before that incident, such as the initiation of the stop or earlier conduct by the parties, may affect how a reasonable officer would have perceived the situation. Now, when you say the earlier conduct by the party, they're not talking about Preddy 2 weeks ago fighting with ICE, because there's no way that these Border Patrol agents knew that he was involved in those prior acts. However, they are aware of multiple prior acts by people that are involved in these situations. That has to be taken into consideration. Prior actions by either the officer or suspect may clarify ambiguous behaviors or shift how threatening a situation reasonably appears, making a strict focus on only the climatic moment inconsistent with established Fourth Amendment jurisprudence. The Fifth Circuit's moment of threat rule improperly limited the inquiry to a narrow time frame. Here, the 2 seconds when the officer was on the vehicle, because this was an instance where a guy was on the vehicle, they took off and he shot inside the car and killed it. He killed Mr. Barnes, I believe. That limitation prevents courts from viewing the officer's conduct in full context, which the Fourth Amendment demands. No time-based rule can be lawfully override the totality of the circumstances approach. Other questions, such as whether an officer's own conduct created the danger that led to the shooting, are questions for the lower courts to address on remand. They didn't get into that. And this was an incident that we've talked about with the other shooting with the vehicle. People were saying he put himself and he created that danger that led to the shooting. That's not a standard that's accepted in court.
Yeah, I just want to address a couple of the comments in the chat.
Behind.
Yeah, Rob 2326 brings up a great point, and he's 100% right. He says respectfully, they're looking at this through the NYPD experience. This is apples and bowling balls. Usually apples and oranges, but you want bowling balls thrown in there, that's fine. Bowling balls are a lot more dangerous. But yeah, I totally agree. I mean, and that's what our perspective is. It's from our experience, over 65 years of experience in the NYPD. So I totally agree with you. And that's what that's why we throw our contact out there. And it's great that, you're in the chat and you throw that, whatever experience you have or whatever, opinions you have. And again, like, we love interacting with the chat, especially on this network. So appreciate everything you do and everything you say. And I agree with you. It is our perspective, and it is from our own experience. And then just what Reed said, if this was the NYPD executive, so a review most likely will not have the experience in true field work. And that's true too. And Reed, I'll also add another thing in there. Within the NYPD, there's political implications, and that is often taken into the decisions on whether or not the shooting is within department guidelines and how it's going to play out in the media. What's going to happen? What's the implications to the police department? So 100%, I totally agree with both of you, and I appreciate both of you, being in the chat and giving us your opinion.
No, I agree. And again, we'll go back to the training, because that comes into play when you're looking at the totality of the circumstances and you're looking at the objective reasonableness, right? Because it comes to the objective reasonableness of these officers. What were they trained? How were they trained? Are they acting within their training and everything else? But again, creating the danger that leads to the shooting is not a defense. Unfortunately, again, legally, it's not a defense. Whether the aggressive nature of the arrest is what led to the ultimate decision to fire their weapons in their chain of events, in their mind, that's not something that has been adjudicated in court. And so, it's difficult, and it's not an easy situation. Lawfully, he was allowed to carry a gun. Lawfully, he was allowed to conceal that firearm. Lawfully, he was allowed to be at a protest with that concealed firearm. Lawfully, he was not obligated to inform, he had no duty to inform the law enforcement that he was carrying his firearm. So all of those things that were said and put out there were inaccurate. And we're going to get to the responses. We're an hour and 40 minutes in. We're going to get to the responses by Christy Nome, Stephen Miller, Chief Bovino from the Customs and Border Patrol, and also Minneapolis Police Chief Gregory O'Hara. So we're going to get into that next, but it's difficult. And yeah, we're looking at this from the lens of the NYPD, but our experience in law enforcement, right, gives us the ability, right? You're talking about 65 years of law enforcement experience between Rob and myself, right? The majority in the executive positions. So we've overseen investigations. We've been on the scene of many shootings, police-involved shootings, regular shootings. We have also studied case law. So we're familiar with case law that covers Minneapolis, that covers all law enforcement throughout the entire country. These cases, Graham v. Connor, Barnes v. Felix from 2025 now, is the law of the land, of all land. Again, don't have to like it. Lawful, but awful. I say it again. It's horrific. It's a chain of events that keeps rearing its ugly head, that shouldn't be going on, that shouldn't happen. But the answer is not because the federal government is carrying out their lawful duties, and the citizens of Minneapolis and other places, primarily in sanctuary cities, don't like it. That's what it comes down to. They don't like the policy. They don't like the law. They don't think it's right. So they go out and they fight. And they don't have the right to fight.
And the politicians fuel the fire by telling them to do this, to go out and fight. So they've caused a lot of this rhetoric and push these people out on the streets to fight. And it just ends up catastrophically happening to citizens and not to them, right? It's easy to tell everybody to go out and demonstrate. It's easy to go out and block ice and get ice out of our neighborhoods. And that's all well and good. But when you start doing it like that, start carrying firearms and you start carrying, I've seen pictures of people with rifles. Well, the first time I saw an individual standing there with a rifle, I said, this is not going to go good. This is going to go bad, because now this person obviously is showing some sort of force already. So it's not like it's a peaceful, right? We talk about peaceful demonstration. This is not peaceful when you're standing there with a long gun and waiting for ICE to come by. And I'll also go back to, and I just want to address Modern Samurai. I do remember that when the FBI came in and they shot up a place on a search warrant, and they kind of just walked out. And that reminds me of when we were doing training at Floyd Bennett Field with some of the federal officers. What happens is there's a train down there, right? A mock train, right? It's actually a train car down there, and they do training on the subway. And what was happening is one of the perps, one of the actors, perps, jumps out of the train, lets a couple shots fired at the federal officer, and then runs around the train. And as he ran around the train, the sun was coming down. And I think I've told the story before on the podcast, but the sun was coming down. So what the federal officer does is he shoots, bang, 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 bang. So right away, it's like, stop, index, what's going on here? Why did you shoot? Well, I was blinded by the sun. Well, okay, so take cover. And it goes, no, I'm allowed, if there's a perceived threat of a man with a gun or a person with a gun, and I'm blinded or I'm held back, I'm allowed to shoot. So we were like, really? I mean, it's pretty cool, but we're not. We're not allowed to just arbitrarily shoot in the air and shoot at somebody. So to go back to this is we're talking about our experience, right? What we know about, even our investigations into firearm discharges within the city of New York. But there could be other statutes. There could be other rules and regulations that ICE and Border Patrol, what they do. and they could have completely followed everything within there. So, like you just said, lawful, or awful, right? Or awful and lawful, either way. So we have to wait for the conclusion and what is actually allowed. You talk about, and this was done by Tom and Pete on 10-4 Tavern, which they had another great show last night, was that Ashley Babbitt. Okay. She was unarmed and she was shot in the Capitol. Okay. So, I mean, you have to think about what's the justification for the federal officer shooting. So there's different laws, there's different justifications. So what we say now on the show is what we know from our perspective. But yeah, there could be other factors, there could be other rules and regulations that we're not aware of that, that caused them, allowed them to shoot. So
yeah, Michael M says the decision to shoot or not shoot is often made in nanoseconds while involved in a violent confrontation. These agents were in a tough spot. I agree.
Absolutely.
We don't disagree with that. But tactics on the side of the federal agents were lacking and I think horrendous. The actions of Mr. Preddy were inappropriate, unlawful, and were contributing factors to what led to the ultimate confrontation and ultimately him losing his life. No, before my phone rings and I get another text message that what he did does not rise to the level of the death penalty. That again is a true statement. Had he been arrested, had he complied with the federal agents and been taken into custody, he would not have received the death penalty. What caused him to receive, unfortunately, the loss of his life was his actions to resist arrest of the Border Patrol agents, coupled by the actions, I believe, I don't think that, again, the standard of law is not there that the threat was caused by the actions of the agents is not a defense, unfortunately. So the actual actions of the agents acting in a over aggressive manner to place him in arrest is not a defense for the fact that he was armed. They didn't know he was a legal carrier of the firearm. They just know that somebody resisting arrest is armed with a gun. And again, we are not there. We are not in the mind of the officers. We cannot articulate the objective reasonableness of those two agents that fired. That's going to be for them to do during this full investigation where they are interrogated and their body-worn camera is broken down and they are questioned and they answer the questions as to why they fired their arm, why did they pull the trigger, what were they thinking, what were the totality of the circumstances leading up to the event, why did you feel that deadly physical force was imminently going to be used against you or another agent or a civilian? That's the answer that's going to have to come up. That's the answer we don't have. All we have is speculation. All we have is 20/20 hindsight, and those are not the levels of the law that they're held against and they're held up to.
There's a couple things that I'll say. I'll just push back a little bit on you. The tactics, well, although don't perceive to be very well, I'll attribute it to the lack of training, right? Because these officers probably aren't trained in this type of thing, type of crowd control, everything else that they've been put into place for. And what I do complain about is the lack of action by the local law enforcement. And go back from what we talked about in the beginning. Had local law enforcement been there to prevent people from coming on the street, to prevent going right up to ICE agents who aren't probably trained to deal with that crowd control, then this whole thing could have been averted. So I put a lot of blame on local law enforcement that, Brian O'Hare or whatever, whatever he does, his political appointment, because to me, he's not a chief. He's just a political pawn to Mayor Frey. That's it. And, he could have alleviated a lot of these problems by talking to Mayor Frey and explaining him that, hey, I can protect our citizens and still not assist ICE and the immigration officers in their enforcement. I'm not going to help them go break down a door. I'm not going to go and grab somebody for them. But what I will do is I'll protect our citizens of Minneapolis and make sure that they don't get hurt in the middle of this demonstration. So
right, and what he's basically saying is that ICE is coming and making things worse. ICE is coming and they're escalating things. ICE is coming and they're causing these problems, and people are sick of it. I'm going to get into his video in a minute, but just for Modern Samurai and Mike and Callie, 3762, multiple sources are saying he was licensed, but haven't said whether he was carrying. He wasn't carrying. From everything I've read, he was not carrying ID or his pistol license. We addressed that earlier in the show. It's not unlawful. It is unlawful, but it's an administrative thing. The maximum fine is $25, and then once you can prove that you were lawfully carrying it, the summons gets dismissed. So it's a in this situation, I believe it's a non-issue. Rob believes that it could add to more backing or proof that he was there for nefarious reasons. However, it's irrelevant when you look at the totality of the circumstances when it comes to law, because there's no way that the ICE or the Customs and Border Patrol agents knew, number one, that he was even carrying a gun, number two, that he was licensed or unlicensed, number three, especially if he had it in his pocket at the time. So it's an after effect that people are trying to throw out there to basically build a case for justification, where I don't believe that fact comes into play at all when it comes to justification. It's an administrative thing. It has nothing to do with justification. His mindset, if he wanted to leave his ID at home because he was going to go out there and he was going to do nefarious things and he had a manifesto, okay, then maybe when you're looking at things in the long run. But when you're looking at that exact situation at that time, and again, we're not looking at the moment of the threat, we're looking at the totality of circumstances where you're looking at that situation and things leading up to that situation. The fact that he didn't have his license on him is completely irrelevant to the shooting. You agree?
yeah, I mean, I didn't agree, but I just think that I don't know for a fact, and we'll never know what was the reason for him not carrying a license. Was there a reason for him to do that? Was he trying to, give false ID? Was he trying to make sure that he was an ID from his previous arrest or his previous interaction? I don't know, and we won't know. So again, we'll go back to anybody has a pistol permit. If you're going to carry your firearm, they go hand in hand, right? They do not get separated. So if you forgot your wallet and you're driving down the street with a firearm on you, turn around, go home, and get your permit. All right.
And I agree. I'm not disagreeing that he should have had his permit on him, his license on him, and the fact that he didn't may lend to his mindset as to what his actions were going to be. However, when looking at the objective reasonableness of the officers, I don't believe that piece of information can come into play, because there's no way that they would be thinking about that they would know about that, or that it has any relevance to the shooting. Granted, yes, maybe he left it at home on purpose because he knew he was going to go out there and get involved and maybe give a fake name or whatever the case may be if he gets apprehended. I agree. I agree that he may have gone out there and this maybe wanted murder by suicide, but never got a chance to pull his gun. We don't know. We really don't know. Like you said, we'll never know, because from what we understand, you know, there's no manifesto because he wasn't out there to do the carnage that he was accused of. But what my point is not to the reason behind why he didn't have his license and his pistol license and his identification with him is not the point I'm making. The point I'm making is its relevance to the objective reasonableness and the totality of the circumstances.
Right. I
was
understand what you're saying. Now, I agree with you. It does the whatever he was doing and his reasoning doesn't affect the actions that he did or the actions that the officers did, because it wouldn't have made any difference, right? Unless we can say that, I mean, this is a far-fetched thing, that he was reaching in his pocket to get his ID. But I mean, that's just all speculation. But I totally agree. If I pulled a gun off of somebody, or somebody was, had a gun and they were reaching for something, I'm not asking for ID at that point either,
100%.
right?
100%. Yeah, it's it's one of those things. It's a horrible situation, and we're not going to have all the answers. I don't think we'll ever have all the answers. But remember that, again, we're discussing the lawful versus awful, right? Is what we're discussing. We both agree it's awful. We both agree it was probably lawful, right? And that they will be found to have been justified in this discharge. But the totality of the circumstances, one of the main points that was specifically brought out by the Supreme Court in Graham versus O'Connor that is taken into consideration when you look at the objective reasonableness of the officer at the incident is someone is actively resisting arrest. That is one of the things that they look at as, was it reasonable? Was their decision reasonable? Because now you have firearm plus resistance of arrest, whether it's lawful or not, the firearm, because nobody knows at that time that it's lawful. And even if it is lawful, it doesn't mean it can't be used in an unlawful manner. We've had people that have lawfully owned firearms, lawfully owned pistols, that have gone out and committed mass murders.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not saying that was his intent, because he never displayed it. He never reached for it, to our knowledge. I don't know.
No, you're right. I mean, that's one of the problems with, you talk about a lot of the active shooters that are able to buy, long guns, even without a permit. I think upstate changed it. Like, you can buy a shotgun, upstate New York, I'm talking about. You can buy a shotgun without a permit. But when you start talking about, different types of rifles, then it requires a permit now. I think that was changed. So, but yeah, I totally agree. There's the capability of getting a lawful gun and shooting somebody with it. It happens all the time. I mean, it happens, unfortunately, people use that firearm, to hurt somebody else. So
Mike and CA 3762. And if he was normal person with the responsibility of carrying a firearm, why would he not say he has a firearm on his person once? It's exactly our point.
100%.
Constitutional carry versus common sense.
Yeah.
So it's the title of the show.
Why wouldn't you want to do that, right?
Let them know.
You don't want to get hurt, right?
You want to de-escalate. You don't want to. Finding a firearm while you're resisting arrest is only going to escalate the situation. It's not always going to cause. Listen, you don't have a lawful right to shoot and kill somebody just because they're armed. It's the manner in which you're acting and the manner in which the officer feels threatened by the fact that you're armed and there's an imminent chance of that firearm being used against you. That's when it becomes the problem.
If you're carrying a firearm and legally carrying a firearm, okay, licensed, and 6 armed law enforcement walk up to you The first thing they're going to see are my hands. I'm dropping the phone. The first thing they're going to see is my hands and say, "Hey, I have a firearm on me." That's the first thing you're going to see. So
That's
I
it.
don't know.
I got pulled over. I've only got pulled over once since I retired, and it was on the Staten Island Expressway. And I got pulled over. I think it was because I don't know. My wife will say I was speeding, but I don't think so. I think it was because my wife and kids were in the back seat, and I was in the HOV lane. He probably didn't see anybody in the front seat with me, so he pulled me over, thinking I was driving in the HOV lane by myself. I got nervous, and I'm saying to myself, I don't even know how to act now. Like, do I give him my license, my registration, and my retired ID card? Like, how do I go about this? Do I say, I'm a retired law enforcement and I'm armed? And out of state, I've done that when I was on the job. I got pulled over, hands on the wheel. I don't even get my wallet while I'm pulling over because then they see they see you doing this in the car while they're behind you, pulling you over. Meanwhile, I'm just getting my wallet, whatever, going in my front pocket for my wallet. They see all this movement. That's escalating, that's heightening their awareness of possible further movements where you're going for a firearm. So I don't even go for my wallet. I get pulled over. I'm like, I used to say, I'm a New York City police officer. I am armed, and I'm going to reach for my wallet, my right pocket, blah, 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 blah. Let them know right away, And to be honest with you, I never knew the duty to inform in whatever states there were that I was in. I never knew the laws. I just did it, And I know we talked about this also. When you go for training for a pistol license, they teach you that. They teach you the laws that you're governed by on what you're mandated to report, when you're mandated to report, and everything else. But they teach you how to effectively and safely get through an interaction with law enforcement, and what you should do to effectively and safely interact with law enforcement so that you're not escalating and you're not scaring them. They have a gun. You know who they are. They don't know who you are. Law enforcement doesn't know who you are. You know they're law enforcement. So if they see somebody they're pulling over, has a gun, and makes a move for it, and they shoot you, 99 times out of 100, they're going to be lawfully justified.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be careful no matter what. I mean, like you said, when I was on the job and got pulled over, I did the same thing, right? My hands were on the wheel. I waited to the office. I used to roll down all my windows and I put my interior light on. I remember actually driving home one time with my Category 1 car, right? I had a Chevy Tahoe, and I was going a little fast, and the state trooper pulled me over. And I put on, remember we used to have the dome light in the middle, and it was pretty bright, so I put the dome light on. I rolled down all my windows. I put the interior lights on. And by that point, he already knew who I was. So he kind of just drove next to me and said, "Slow down, retard." I said, sorry. But when I'm in my private car, I would still do the same. I'd roll down all the windows. I'd sit there with my hands on the wheel. And just like you said, listen, I'm, off duty, New York City police officer. My wallet's and my ID is in my front pocket. And they would say, okay, slow, controlled manner, take out your ID. And that's what you want to do. Any furtive movements or fast movements, that picks that cues everybody up. So I don't know if you've ever seen the videos on YouTube. It's like a mockery. Like there'll be somebody pulled over and they'll say, "How do you give your ID to the police officer?" And then the guy would grab his wallet. It was like this, and he shoves it up real fast. It's like, no, that's not the way you do it, right? There's a controlled way. So, to this scenario, he didn't have his ID on him, so he was not even looking to show ID.
No.
And when he's on the ground, I don't know what his hands were doing. I don't know if he's still resisting. As a law enforcement officer, you don't know what's in his pocket, okay? And yeah, a gun was removed. Like I said earlier, that doesn't mean there's not a second gun. We were taught, to go for a second gun. How many times, did you search somebody after they were cuffed and you come up with a firearm and stuff? So you got to be careful. You don't know You know, just because you found one gun doesn't mean there's a second one. No.
Oh, 100%. And again, when those agents are notified that he has a gun, what was he doing? Was he still violently resisting? His hands were down. Maybe they think he's going for the waist. We don't know, and we're not going to know. We may know from the final report eventually what they thought and what was going on, and they may release the body worn camera. I don't know if they will. The NYPD always does, but I don't know if the federal government's going to. But you know, it's
Well, like Reed said earlier, remember, right? And we're taught this, and I was taught this when I did anti-crime. You were taught this in the police academy. The uniformed officer is in charge,
100%.
right? 100 all the time. So you are, no matter what, you could be running after a perpetrator. And I don't remember. Do you remember there was a tragedy? I think it was in the 2-5. There was an off-duty officer. I think they were trying to steal his car, and he was running down the road with his gun in his hand, and uniformed officers came around the corner and shot him because all they saw was the gun. So you have to remember that the uniformed officer is in charge. And if you lose a perpetrator because the uniformed officer tells you to freeze and not move, or police don't move, that's what you have to do. You know, God forbid you turn on them, you do something like that. It's a bad day for yourself. You know, you're responsible for your own actions. And I think that's what happens in these cases. These people are responsible for their own actions. Okay. What they put themselves there. The other problem, again, and I'll reiterate, that their local law enforcement are also responsible because they knew what was going on. They knew what was especially after the last shooting. I mean, they should have been out there. They just, and just a word of caution to all these demonstrators, whether you're paid or not, you know, whether you're doing this on your own, you think you have a cause, you have to be careful. You're gonna put yourself in harm's way, and you're gonna force the officer to make a judgment call, and he or her is gonna react on the way they were trained to do. So you have to be very careful.
No, 100%. And I think you're talking about Omar Edwards, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a tragic friendly fire, situation, 100%. And Rob is asking us if we remember the Del Debbio case. Yeah, that's the officer that was shot on the train. Friendly fire situation. Another situation is terrible. And then Mike in CA again, a lot of great comments tonight. Mike, thank you for being involved. Thanks for joining us. It's the first time I've seen you in the chat. The only thing I could think of is he felt his gun was taken from his person, and he also panicked and grabbed where his gun was supposed to be, which could have caused a chain reaction. Quite possible.
Absolutely, yeah.
Quite possible. But let's look. We're 2 hours and 8 minutes into this. Let's look at the reaction, because we're always very critical, right? We're always very critical of Mayor Frey, of Governor Walz, of Chief O'Hara, who we're going to be critical about tonight also. But let's look at afterwards, after this incident, what did the Trump administration come out and say? Now, I don't have anything from Trump, but Trump did come out and basically say that, why was this guy coming to a protest with a loaded 9mm and 2 extra magazines? He's up to no good. So he is placing blame. But again, we've talked about it at length. He had every legal right to be there, to be armed, and to be at that protest with his firearm. Whether he had nefarious intentions, he did nothing illegal when it comes to being armed and not notifying the police, because there's no duty to inform in Minneapolis unless specifically asked if he has a weapon, which we don't believe obviously happened at this point.
I got a question.
Yeah.
They said that he had 2 other magazines, right? Now, when the person removed that, when the agent removed that firearm, I just saw it in a holster. I didn't see the additional magazines.
Yeah, I don't
So
know.
I'm wondering, did he have a pouch with magazines, a magazine pouch? Did he have, where were those other magazines? And if you grab a magazine, that could be perceived as a threat too. You don't know. So, I mean, there's contributing factors that we're not aware of. And I would really love to know where those two magazines were recovered from. Were they by his hand? Was he?
Yeah. I haven't
If
heard
I
anything
saw,
about that. Yeah.
yeah, if you see somebody pulling a magazine out, you see the butt of the magazine, right? I think a gun's coming out.
Like you said, if he has, because I used to, when I was in plain clothes, have the extra pouch with the extra magazines. So
Yeah,
if he had a pouch,
right.
even if an open pouch with just the slots that you slide them in, again, could that be mistaken for a firearm if he's reaching for it too? 100%. Again,
Right.
a million what ifs. And prototype 15, majority of ICE agents are anonymous with no ID whatsoever. How are we supposed to trust them? We spoke about this a little earlier. Even the typical PDs, rural towns, are not without negligence and corruption. We don't disagree. We talked about this. Rob spoke about it earlier that they are not they are not wearing identifiable name tags. However, they are identifiable as the police. He was not reacting to someone who, like Chief O'Hara had said in the prior press conference, masked men, kidnapping people off the street. That's not the situation. He was intentionally interfering with known federal agents. Again, we're not saying that their actions may not have had some negligence involved. We're not saying that. We're saying that we both believe that this case will ultimately end up to be a justified, under the law shooting. So let's look at what Christy Nome had to say after this on her initial statements.
Approached U.S. Border Patrol officers with a 9mm semi-automatic handgun. The officers attempted to disarm this individual, but the armed suspect reacted violently. Fearing for his life and for the lives of his fellow officers around him, an agent fired defensive shots. Medics were on the scene immediately and attempted to deliver medical aid to the subject, but he was pronounced dead at the scene. Crowd control measures were deployed to bring safety to the public and to law enforcement at the scene. And once again, I want to remind everybody that this situation and this tragedy did not have to happen. This individual showed up to impede a law enforcement operation and assaulted our officer.
Oh.
Responded according to their training and took action to defend the officer's life and those of the public around him. And I don't know of any peaceful protester that shows up with a gun and ammunition rather than a sign. This is a violent riot when you have someone showing up with weapons and are using them to assault law enforcement officers.
So, two very specific things that I take issue with what she said was that, number one, right at the end, that he showed up with a firearm to use against law enforcement. No evidence of that whatsoever. None whatsoever. The other thing, I was going to stop and talk about it, but you weren't there. So let me see if I could find the other thing.
Showed up to impede a law enforcement operation and assaulted our officer. Responded according to their training.
Again, I'd love to know what their actual training is. That they responded with their training. I don't know what their training is, because to me, they don't seem well trained. I said it earlier. There's no leadership. There's no supervision given direction to how to move people, to how to disperse crowds. They all seem to be acting independently and not as a cohesive unit.
Yeah, I agree.
I think took action.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think they need more training, or they, like I've said before, if this is gonna be the common means of their enforcement, then they need to train a little bit better. And I've said it before, and somebody said in the chat earlier, they need, I think it was, it might have been Rob mentioned it, that there was people sent there that are better trained in disorder control, for the federal government. And that's
Yeah,
what they
it
need.
was like an ICE response unit.
Right, exactly, 100%. Spot
But
on, Ron.
but again, this wasn't a large crowd situation like we've had in other confrontations. This was a smaller group, and they really only engaged with the female and the male. Nobody else tried to jump in. Nobody else tried to interfere. So this wasn't that's the problem I have. And I had this conversation earlier today too with a family member, where it's not like with the NYPD and we have a protest that we know about, or we have a pop-up protest that we can respond to. Every single operation that they conduct turns out to be a demonstration and a protest because of the signal chat of people that are directing them to every location that ICE is seen or is operating at. So it's impossible for, like I said, I don't think that that's, is a plausible response, because you'd have to have one of those response units with every team that goes out. Pretty much is what and it's kind of what they're doing with the Border Patrol. That's what they were sent there for. They sent over 1,000 Border Patrol agents there to do just that, to do force protection, to do crowd control, to allow the agents to conduct their operations.
And that's a technique too, though. It's just not, you just don't come from one law enforcement agency and go do that. We talk about, Anthony Raganella and, his disorder control and the training. And we talk about Louis Anamone, who came up, with the whole thing with Tommy Graham years ago.
Right.
I mean, that was training, right? That we all went to, and the task forces got very, very good training in it, and we're the experts. And I think that at this point, that's what you need, whether or not it's a small group or not. But there needs to be a van, like what we used to say, 1 in 8, right? 1 sergeant, 8 police officers ready to deploy, ready to be able to push. And then there should be other people on standby, ready to respond, like we do. We do the mobile field forces. So it's not anything new. It's out there. It's new to the federal government. It's new to ICE, but it's not new to any law enforcement. So if your local law enforcement is going to not do that and not support you, then they need to train the federal partners into that specific job responsibility and put them out there with them, and advise them that all your responsibility here is to provide us with, like you said, force protection, so that we can go down these roads, down these streets, and do our enforcement.
So TC saying I should stop acting like I've never seen an NYPD patrol dog pile. Absolutely, I have. And if I was on the scene, I would tap people off and try to give direction on how to take that person into custody safely. Because the dog pile is not going to be effective, because you can't even get to the guy's arms because everybody else is in your way. So yeah. And then Modern Samurai is saying that, there's no evidence to say otherwise to support the other side either. 100%. We don't have the answers. We're Monday morning quarterbacking. We're frame by frame and analyzing things that we don't have the answer to, because just like body-worn camera, we don't have the human element to bring into our conversation. Like we've talked about in the past, right? It's missing that human element when you're looking at a body-worn camera.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking at a static view that may not even be the same view that an officer is looking at. And there's no human emotion or element in that video. So no, we don't have the answer. You're right.
Yeah. First of all, Amazing Ant was correct. I did a 62p a little while ago. That was a 62 personal. But the dog pile, that cracks me up. I haven't heard that in years. And that reminds me, it's like an NFL game, right? The quarterback falls down and you got eight people from the other team on top of them. And yeah, that was hilarious. I remember in one dog pile, and I was in the dog pile, and her first name's Carmen. I won't say her last name, but a really good police officer. And she just started swinging the nightstick, and I don't think she had the old balsa wood one. She had the Coca-Cola.
Oh, the Coca-Cola.
And I got hit in the back of my legs, man. Oh my God. But no fault to her. We were trying to get this guy in custody. I think it was up on White Plains Road, and he had a whole bunch of he was selling marijuana and stuff. But it was crazy. It was definitely pile on the rabbit there, man. It was crazy. So.
And Prototype, Ron Layson, thank you for addressing my message. I have some major disagreements. However, I appreciate your attention and consideration. Listen, it's a First Amendment platform. We appreciate everybody's comments. We appreciate opposing opinions. Like even on here, Rob and I have opposing opinions on certain things. It's just our perspective. It's a podcast, not a newscast. We say it all the time. And, we're going to address people as long as people aren't rude and aren't getting, racially disparaging or anything like that. We're going to put your message up. If it's appropriate into the conversation, we're going to bring it into the conversation. That's one thing about this platform, and especially this show. We're very interactive with our chat. We love to bring you into the conversation. We love to hear your opinions. We love to hear your perspectives on things so that we could spark the conversation. And we're going on a 2 hours and 20 minutes, and we have a few videos to go. And Rob and I didn't know that we were going to make it to 2 hours today. Mm-hmm. We were talking that this was the only topic that we had. It was a last minute, put together because of my travel. And, we didn't even know how the conversation was going to go tonight. So we appreciate you. We appreciate your input, and we appreciate your opposing opinion. And again, we don't have all the answers. We don't know who's on the right, who's on the wrong here. We think there's blame enough to go around to everybody here. But what we're saying is that lawful but awful. In the long run, we think that this is going to be deemed justifiable due to the laws that are on the books and the Supreme Court cases. So,
you want to bring up another video of somebody else?
Yeah, let's go to the Border Patrol Chief Bovino, who has since been reassigned, not punitively, but to go to California and help out in California.
Yeah,
but,
okay.
And Trump has, had a conversation with Governor Walz that they both say was a productive conversation that, everybody agrees that something needs to change. And what Trump is saying is, what needs to change is instead of us going out there and having to, pick up these people, I almost used the word snatch, and then people would have got all bent on me saying that we're snatching people off the street and kidnapping them when that's not the case. They're arresting people out in the open instead of picking them up when they're arrested for other crimes or convicted of other crimes that don't fall into that list of serious felonies. Well, let's see what he had to say initially and how his tone has changed in the last couple of days.
This morning with Minnesota's Attorney General in court today to try to stop the ICE surge in our state as people continue to mourn the Minneapolis man who was shot and killed by ICE agents on Saturday. 37-year-old Alex Preddy, he was an ICU nurse at the VA hospital who worked with veterans. The Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem immediately came out and said that Border Patrol acted in self-defense and claims that Preddy approached Border Patrol officers with a handgun. But videos from the scene show Preddy was holding a cell phone, not a gun, when he was shot. Plus, sworn declarations submitted in federal court by witnesses contradict key points of the events that we are hearing from federal officials. Now, within 24 hours of the deadly shooting of Alex Preddy, the lead Border Patrol official has changed his tone.
After making strong claims Saturday, Gregory Bovino is now urging the public to stop speculating and wait for an investigation. Our Barrett Leone is live at the Growing Memorial. That's at 26th and Nicollet with the latest. Barrett, what changed over the weekend?
Hey, good morning, AJ, Heather. Well, we know within 24 hours, federal officials seem to flip the script here. We heard from the Border Patrol boss, Gregory Bovino, and he is urging patience. He's also asking the public to stop making judgments and wait for a thorough investigation. Now, this comes, all of this comes as many videos with different angles are being shared publicly. And it's also really a stark contrast from what he told reporters just hours after Alex Preddy's death on Saturday. So yesterday, Bovino said he would not speculate about what led agents to opening fire, saying investigators needed time to determine what actually happened. He encouraged the public to do the same. Now, this tone marks a shift from Saturday when Bovino described the incident as an intentional attack on law enforcement. Take a listen.
This looks like a situation where an individual wanted to do maximum damage and massacre law enforcement. I'm not going to speculate on who did what, when they did it, how they did it, or what exactly occurred there. I'm going to wait for the investigation to let me know what happened.
So, I mean, that's exactly what he said in the last part is what they should be saying all over. Like, what were we taught when we were first taught when Bratton came in the second time, and he was allowing local commanders to do press conferences, and it wasn't only him like Ray Kelly did in the past. We were taught, right? We had to go for training, and we were taught that and you still see it to this day on every press conference after a police-involved shooting or a major incident, is that the facts that we're about to present are preliminary and subject to change, right? So you're given a preliminary investigation, you give him preliminary answers. Listen, I appreciate him supporting his personnel. I appreciate Kristi Noem supporting law enforcement. I appreciate President Trump supporting law enforcement and supporting qualified immunity. But everybody has to take a breath, It's been said in the chat as well, that people are just coming out and saying things too fast and not waiting to even get, basic facts. And Terry Manane said it. Sleepy Joe puts in here. I didn't get to the end of the other video, but yeah, she's claiming, that she labeled the resident killed as domestic terrorists, and saying that came straight from Stephen Miller. Who put out this post, right? I have to take the video down, sorry. Right, so Stephen Miller, Deputy Chief of Staff to President Donald J. Trump. A would-be assassin tried to murder federal law enforcement, and the official Democrat account sides with the terrorists. Because the Democrats put out ICE agent shot and killed another person in Minnesota this morning. Get ICE out of Minnesota now. Now, again, that's the Democrats put out an inflammatory statement, but there's nothing there that is not factual. It's just not in any type of context whatsoever, right? And then their opinion of get ICE out of Minnesota now is their opinion. But for the, Stephen Miller, number 2 guy, right, in Trump's office, in the White House, a would-be assassin tried to murder federal law enforcement officer. That's not a true statement. It's not a true statement. And to put that out there is inflammatory on the Trump administration's part as well.
Yeah, sometimes there's a rush to get information out, and it's arbitrary and capricious. They just throw it out there. The idea of what Bratton did, making that statement that it's preliminary and subject to change, means that I'm giving you the facts that I have right now, and clearly it could change later on. Problem was, years ago, our department didn't give out anything, which led to speculation and suspicion that it was a cover-up. It was
Right.
done intentionally. So there's a fine line. And we would hope that everybody, in an executive manner, when they put things out, they put it out slowly, and they put it out just the facts that they have at the scene. Okay, what were the facts there? The facts were that he was armed with a gun. The facts that were the ICE agents or the Border Patrol fired a perceived threat of a gun. That's all that really has to be said at that point. You don't have to go through into everything. You don't have to go into the whole investigation. The problem is we can't go into the whole investigation because we don't have all the actual physical evidence. All we have is video camera that gives us a third party view, and for everybody to make speculations. And that's the problem right there. So there should be a controlled information pushed out on the facts, and that's usually to quell the speculation that it's a cover up, that it was, was bad or whatever. And that's the other thing. A good point is, if it is bad, if it's a bad shooting, then say it's bad. I'm not by no means am I saying that either one of these shootings that I've saw with the ICE agents or the Border Patrol with the vehicle or with this armed individual are bad. By no means do I think they're bad. I think they're good. But if it is in fact a bad shooting, it doesn't hurt to give that information out too, because it leads to a little bit of I think trustworthiness amongst law enforcement. Not that matters, because one bad incident will wipe out 100 good ones. But I just think that, yeah. And I also believe that, the federal government and people that weren't even there, like, he's not the spokesperson for that agency. All right. Christie is, right. So why not just let her say it? It's her job. Nobody else has to jump on the bandwagon. All right. If Ron Layson had a great shooting in the 110. You don't hear the chief of special operations going, yeah, it was a great shooting, and the guy picked up the gun, and I saw everything. No, one spokesman, one person. That's it. That's all it has to be. Give out the facts, make it short, concise, and that's it.
100%. 100%. It's just, it's a shame. So we've been critical of the government administration in Minnesota. I think rightfully so. I think that they've been very insightful, where they are encouraging people to go out and protest against ICE, which again is everyone's First Amendment right to peaceably protest. Not to block streets, not to block businesses, not to impede federal operations. To go out there, you want to videotape all you want. You can't get in my face and videotape and everything else like the NYPD allows, which is disgusting, right? But from a safe distance, you can tape anything you want. The fact that they have these signal chats that they dispatch each other to different locations, that's legal unless it's confidential information that's being leaked out of the government, which is possibly being looked into, right? With the lieutenant governor, it came out that she's like one of the ringleaders of this signal chat. But I don't know where the legality is in that, so I'm not going to comment on it because I haven't done any research on it. I don't know what the legality of that is. I don't know if she's giving out any confidential information or if she's just passing along information, which is her right to do as a private citizen as well as a government official, right? But again, peaceably protest, not impede their operations. And the job that we say the Minneapolis Police Department needs to do is to get out in front of this, to tell the public that you have the right to peaceably protest, but you don't have the right to do this. But instead, that's not what they say. Let's listen to Face the Nation, because of course he's getting plenty of FaceTime with all this that's going on. So let's see what Minneapolis Police Chief Gregory O'Hara has to say on this incident.
From what you have seen in the public space and heard from federal officials, is there any evidence that you know of that Preddy was assaulting the federal officers as the Border Patrol chief claims?
Well, I've seen the videos just as thousands of people around the country have, and the videos speak for themselves. I think it's deeply concerning, the things that are being said. This is an individual that was a city resident. It appears that he was present, exercising his First Amendment rights to record law enforcement activity, and also exercising his Second Amendment rights to lawfully be armed in a public space in the city.
Statement so far, absolutely true. Except, the videos speak for themselves. He's not describing the videos. He's just saying that they speak for themselves. But that the fact that he was out there to demonstrate his First Amendment right, yes, he was. To carry his Second Amendment right to carry a firearm, yes, he was. But he doesn't get into the fact that he then impedes federal operations and resists arrest.
No.
Let's get back to it.
So I think very obviously there are serious questions that are being raised. And I think the greater issue is, even if there is an investigation that ultimately proves that at the time of the shooting it was legally justified, I don't think that even matters at this point, because there is so much outrage and concern around what is happening in the city.
What? Let's hear that once again.
Issue is, even if there is an investigation that ultimately proves that at the time of the shooting it was legally justified, I don't think that even matters at this point, because there is so much outrage and concern around what is happening in the city.
You're the chief of police, and you're saying on national television that if there's an investigation and the shooting is found to be justified, it doesn't matter.
How, if you were in that police department, how would you feel if your chief of police said that it doesn't matter? All right.
Listen, well, I'm going to bring it back up. Even CNN, she was blown away.
She doesn't understand it either.
Yeah, watch.
What do you mean it doesn't matter at this point? You mean the situation on the ground is already, the impression is left?
People have had enough. This is the third shooting now in less than 3 weeks. The Minneapolis Police Department went the entire year last year recovering about 900 guns from the street, arresting hundreds and hundreds of violent offenders, and we didn't shoot anyone. And now this is the second American citizen that's been killed. It's the third shooting within 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. People have been speaking out, saying that this was going to happen again.
Okay, but you're not talking about, we had a whole show, we wound up doing the show, like the first hour and a half of the show, impromptu, and then followed up on it, on the Good shooting. When I say Good, I mean Renee Good, in the vehicle, and the justification for that, and the videos that came out after our, because that broke just as we were going on the air. And then we followed it up the next week and talked about it even more when more video came out, right? So he's not, again, that investigation is not concluded, but he's not saying that they're waiting for the conclusion. They're just saying an American citizen was shot and killed by federal agents. The third shooting, they're not saying that the second shooting of the illegal immigrant was coming at the agents with a deadly weapon when he was killed. Let's not mention that. Let's just throw it out there that they're out there shooting and killing people. And that's what you're doing. That's not inflaming things.
When you look at what Mike is it Mike in CA 3762 said he drank the Kool-Aid. You remember years ago, there used to be a saying, that person drank the Kool-Aid, and then somebody else would say that person didn't drink the Kool-Aid. They're swimming in the damn Kool-Aid, and that's what he's doing. That guy's bathing in it right now. He's trying to say everything that he thinks will be right to say on behalf of Mayor Frey and Governor Waltz. That's all it is. He's not saying what I truthfully don't think, and I would hope that he's not saying that because he believes that. Okay. Nobody wants to see anybody get killed. We all took an oath to preserve life, but we all want to go home at the end of the day. So we're going to do what we have to do to protect ourselves and protect other people. So for him to elude the question, leave out some of the facts, like I spoke about earlier, where were the facts that he did get between a law enforcement officer and somebody else that was confronting them? He was not peaceful in any such way. That's not a peaceful demonstration. A peaceful demonstration of you and I have spoken about too on prior episodes is, hey, stay in your authorized area, stay far enough away, and what we always sight and sound, right? That's the biggest thing we always do. You've said it all the time. So why not? Why not? But to say that rhetoric and stuff, it just kind of, it's like saying, okay, I can almost justify the officers in the shooting, but we still have to, we're upset and we're still mad about all these shootings and we got to still be out there. He's just fueling it more. He's not doing anything to quell the violence and doing nothing to help his own citizens. He's literally he's pushing them people into the volcano. That's all he's doing.
Never heard that one before, but yeah, I understand it completely.
Like that?
Yeah, I like that.
Ever see the movie Joe and the Volcano?
Yeah, but I don't remember movie lines like that. I'm old. I don't remember things like that. But yeah, 92 Charlie says the same thing. One question they should be asking is, what is his department doing to protect its citizens and protest? We talked about that before. Stephen S., is being Stephen S. with his usual explanations of things. We'll leave it at that. Let you read that comment yourself. When did it become okay to interfere with law enforcement? It's not. She's right. It's not. It's a riot, not a peaceful protest. It's not a riot because he showed up with a licensed firearm. That does not constitute a riot, which is what she was saying. It's crazy. Now, there's, I've read some things online, and I'm not sure, we've talked about it, the way that Frey, the mayor of Minneapolis, and Governor Walz, the governor of Minnesota, and, could have been our vice president, right? Is out there, and they're pushing this. It's almost like they want President Trump to invoke the Insurrection Act and send in the National Guard. Where somebody made a comment, and I don't remember exactly where it was, that, when Trump removed Chief Bovino and is now sending Tom Homan in to oversee the ICE operations, and he basically said, yeah, let's, we got to, something's got to change. We got to work together. And, you should really be working with us to help us to get these people off the streets of your city to make it safer without these confrontations. He basically called their bluff because really, I believe too that they wanted him to invoke the Insurrection Act, which I think is pretty much almost justified at this point, so that everybody on the left can say that it's a police state. And we've gone in and we've now taken over Minnesota because we are just, I don't want to use the Nazi word that people are throwing around because that's disgusting, but that we're making it a police militant state, which but listen, but let's listen to the last part of his statement, right? Because basically he's saying that they can't handle it.
Wait,
this
that's one
kind of
thing though
waiting.
before you do it.
Go ahead.
I was going to say that don't forget what's coming up. It's the midterms. You push Trump to do something, and all it's going to do is be in the news. It's going to be on the election trail, on the campaign trails. It's going to be put out there that he caused an insurrection act against American citizens. Just the same as Governor Walz activated his National Guard, and it could almost be pitting them against the federal agents. So it's all a show. It's all a political show. And why wouldn't they, again, continually tell their residents, yeah, go out and demonstrate. Here's where they are. Use these little emojis. Oh, this guy, they're over there. This is over there. And if it is coming from the lieutenant governor, and even if she's doing it on her own private, Instagram or own private Twitter, no good. Okay, just like you and I, when we were on the job and we did something that's conduct unbecoming, right? It's against the good order of the department. There's a lot of things that they can get you for. So, I don't care if you're, it didn't. I thought Kaz got in trouble for having his own private Twitter, right? Then John and Eric called him out, and he changed it, because he's a public agent, a public official, or alleged, I'll say. But anyway,
now he's a federal agent.
Yeah, that's a tragedy of justice too. That's
well, actually, I don't know if he's a federal agent. He's the New York liaison to ICE.
Yeah, a guy that never handled one case in his whole life, made it to first grade detective, is now going to help and a liaison between law enforcement. Come on, that was a terrible move, but that's a whole nother story. You want to show the rest of the video, or?
Yeah, let's just look at his last statement, because basically what he's saying here is, come on in.
Is kind of waiting for folks on both sides to come together and just figure this thing out. This is not sustainable. This police department has only 600 police officers. We are stretched incredibly thin. This is taking an enormous toll trying to manage all of this chaos on top of having to be the police department for a major city. It's too much.
But you're not doing nothing.
Yeah, we need a ambulance right there for that guy. All right, that's what that comes out to. So, cry me a river, bro.
That's it. I mean, you have anything else on this?
No.
Anything else you want to? I mean, we're 2 hours and 47 minutes in. It's almost 8 o'clock New York time. Yeah, he infuriates us too, Stephen. Anybody who has worn the uniform and cares about the oath they've sworn has to be infuriated by him. I'm sorry. It's to me, you're pandering to your boss, who is an activist and not looking out for the best interest of the citizens of Minneapolis.
Yeah, I totally agree. He needs to resign. Go find a job somewhere else in the corporate world where they'll eat him alive.
92 Charlie, I wrote it down. It was at 5:38 when you posed that initial question. So I'll get to that in a second. Mm-hmm. All right. Anything else? Anything else you want to touch on before we wrap this out to Ask an Executive?
No, we're good.
All right. So let's move on. This is the portion of the show, Ask an Executive, where you have the opportunity, and Ron and Rob will answer questions from the chat, or you could also message us at the executiveperspective@gmail.com, or you can DM us on X at execperspective. Our DMs are open to all. If you have a question offline, you're an active member, you don't want to use your name because you don't want to come on to YouTube and get into the comments, feel free to message us. Either send us an email, or you can DM us at the Executive Perspective. We will keep your identification completely anonymous, and we'll read out your question on the next show if appropriate. If not, and we think it's appropriate to answer, we'll answer your question directly to you and let you know that we don't think it's appropriate for the show, which has happened in the past. So at this time, people feel that they don't have, or they actually legitimately don't have access to executives. Rob was a retired chief. I'm a retired inspector. Feel free, jump in the comments now with any questions on topic, off topic, and we'll go right to 92 Charlie. 92 Charlie had asked earlier in the show, I'm not going to scroll all the way back to 5:38 p.m., but he wanted to know what our opinions were on the raccoon shooting. And what he's talking about, for those who aren't aware, I don't have a graphic, but in the 100th precinct over the weekend, I think it was, a sergeant discharged his firearm, killed an aggressive raccoon. It was discussed on Eric's and John's show. They did a segment on it. If you want to go back to Monday's show on the executive on New York's finest retired unfiltered podcast, John, Eric, and Marlon did discuss this. I know Rob. I was away. I didn't catch the whole show, but I did catch that portion of the show, and I know you were in the comments. So I'll let you take this one.
So I'm in a little bit of opposition with John and Eric. I just think, and this is all, of course, I have to base it on the body-worn camera that I saw of the officer that watches the sergeant shoot the raccoon. And then I look and I see, there's a beach, there's a boardwalk. I don't see any civilians around the area. I just think that there was talk about the raccoon had aggressively charged somebody earlier. I don't know whether or not was the officers or if that was civilians. But that raccoon, at that point where I see the body-worn camera, it doesn't seem like the raccoon's charging them. So I just think that shooting at that point was not necessary. Emergency service unit has animal control capabilities. They have a noose. They have a dart, which they can shoot with Keteset and tranquilize the animal, which is often done. So I'm not really sure if I agreed with it, only because of what I saw. And then I felt that the modification of the sergeant was justified. And the reason I'll say that is because if one of the two officers had shot, then I would say, oh, okay, I kind of agree with that. I mean, the officer, was told by the sergeant, all right, we have to terminate the threat or whatever at this time. I question as to why a patrol supervisor, a sergeant, shot and the two officers just stood there and didn't shoot. So was there really a perceived threat, or was this just the sergeant going a little bit rogue, in my opinion? I don't know. But there's other ways to control, isolate and contain, right? I mean, we talk about that with emergency disturbed persons, isolate and contain. They can tactically retreat. Now there was talk about, okay, what if the raccoon ran down the boardwalk and bit somebody? Absolutely, that's a question, and it's the same question I would say that if you didn't grab a guy with a gun and he ran down the block and he got away and then shot somebody, unfortunately, bad things happen. So I'm a little off with it, because I don't think, again, if the police officers had done the shooting, I would be okay with it. They're all there together, all three. If all three shot, I'd probably feel a little bit better about it. But with just the sergeant was the only shooter, I'm sorry, I have a big problem with that. But I also thought they should have named the raccoon Rocky Raccoon from the Beatles. All right, I'm probably dating myself, but that's a hell of a song, and that could have been played on Instagram with him, Rocky Raccoon.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know enough about it. I was away. I didn't see a lot about it. I did catch part of the show, like I said. That's why I said it. I know you had voiced your opposing opinion in the chat on their show. But Yeah, I mean, when you're dealing with an animal and everything else, I remember, listen, I remember one time we had a dog, and I designated a shooter.
Yeah.
My driver was annoyed because he wasn't the senior guy, and I designated the senior female officer, the senior officer who was a female. I said, Emma, you're the designated shooter. If this thing comes at us, you're taking it out, because I didn't want everybody letting it go. Right? That's one of the things you're supposed to be doing. Right? I don't know if that's applicable in the raccoon situation. I did see the raccoon run across. I am very familiar with the area. I didn't see anybody else on the boardwalk. I see the raccoon come out of the area where you walk down onto the beach where the sand berm is. I don't know what the actions were prior. I don't know the whole story. I don't know. I didn't see the entire body worn camera. You only see one little snippet of the incident. So I don't know, and I'm just going to reserve judgment on it because I don't have. If I was the responding duty inspector, I'm going to have a lot more information.
Right.
Somebody did post something that the two officers were told to fire, and they said, "Hell no, you do it." I might have an issue with that, but again, that's just conjecture. I don't know that for a fact, and I don't know all the facts. So,
the raccoon was wearing a mask, though.
he was masked.
He had a mask.
So, all right, Mike and CA, again, great comments today. Great podcast, Rob and Ron. Happy I tuned in.
Thanks,
We're
Mike.
glad you're here. We hope you come back. We're here every Wednesday, 5:05 p.m. Hit the like, hit the share, and definitely subscribe. We're at 97.8 thousand subscribers for the network, the Finest Unfiltered Network. We're going to hit the 100,000, and I think the algorithm will change with that 100,000 milestone. So those detesters who say we're just a small little tiny podcast because you only see right now on YouTube 48 people watching, but meanwhile we have over 400 people watching on all the different platforms. And then, after a day or two, there'll be a couple of thousand views on YouTube on this show. So, which makes it's kind of questionable. You have almost 100,000 viewers, and our shows on YouTube are getting a few thousand views. Something's wrong, and hopefully the algorithm does change, and we get a little more honest projection of our show after we hit that 100,000. But thank you very much for joining, Mike. Thank you for your comments and your participation, and we hope to have you back next week. And you can always check out our prior podcasts visit the Finest Unfiltered in YouTube, and you can find us there. From Reed, during your time in the department, what PC did you consider a good one?
Me?
Yes, again.
I mean, I love Ray Kelly. I just think he was in charge. You knew he was in charge. I thought he was very fair. I know there was rumors that you ever saw the police commissioner out in public, you weren't allowed to go up to him, but he might come up to you and talk to you. I had decent conversations with him. I thought he was always a gentleman, respectful. He actually asked questions, about the issue K9 and a few other things when I was there. So, and I know he was a ESU captain. He had been a captain in ESU during his tenure. Yeah, on his rise up to the top. My second, even though I don't really like him, I think he was a good police commissioner, was Bill Bratton on his first one. I think he brought equipment and change to the department that was absolutely necessary at the time. So those are my.
And I'll second that. I was there. I was around. We were both around for both Kelly and both Bratton appointments. And I agree with you that Bratton brought on the technology, the equipment, the 9mm. I was the first class of 9mm in 1993 when I went into the academy. We were the first ones to train and be assigned the 9mm out of the academy, the August '93 class. He moved on with a lot of other technology and everything else. Again, Ray Kelly, I agree with you 100%. He was the boss. The police department was respected. We were the goat of policing under Ray Kelly, without a doubt. And that kind of swings right into Delray, who's always got good questions. Delray 53. What is your perspective in '93 when Commissioner Kelly restricted NYPD officers to 10-round magazine because he was concerned of the potential for overshooting in a densely populated area? He never, Bratton is the one that converted us into the 9mm. And you're right, Kelly was against 9mm, but was going to give in to 10 rounds. But then once he was out, Bratton came in and we went right to the 15-round magazines.
Yeah, I think 15 rounds is where it's at. I mean, you talk about some of the perpetrators that are taking guns off the streets with these major magazines, like 30 rounds or whatever. So to give us 10, no, it was definitely a necessity to have 15, right? You have 15 plus one in the chamber, right? And you have another 30 on you. I mean, it brought us up to a speed where we could actually defend ourselves. So
I don't know if Modern Samurai's being sarcastic. Well, he says, Ron and Rob, do you have an opinion on PC Tish hanging a mezuzah outside of her office door at 1 pp? I don't know if she does. If she does, I don't have an issue with it.
yeah, I mean that's a tough thing. Though. My only issue is that if it's at work. So I mean, you're supposed to be apolitical, right, in the law enforcement. So I don't necessarily. There's certain times maybe she could do that, and certain times, with Christmas trees and menorahs and stuff like that. But to do that, I don't know if it's necessarily necessary. But hey, she's the police commissioner. So, but don't complain if somebody else hangs a cross or something else, right? So, or all the other things. So I don't know. I have a little bit of a problem with it. I'm sorry. I don't think it's right, but. I think you should be apolitical all the way around, always.
But that's religion, not politics.
Huh? Right.
That's
well,
religion, not
but
politics.
still, yeah. So,
I don't know. 92 Charlie, another great show. Last week's show, Time Inspector Cortezis was really good too. Yep, we appreciate that.
Yeah. Hold on. I just want to jump back. Michael Freed saying. There's a picture of it online. So why was it? And Modern Samurai says it was all over X today. Why do you put that out? Like, what does she want out of the picture?
I don't. Did she put it out?
If you do it because of your religious beliefs, and you want to show people when they come in your office or whatever that that place has been blessed or whatever. But why do you put it out? Who put it out?
Who put it out? Did somebody leak it out?
I'm hearing she did. I'm hearing that she put it out.
Modern Saturday or Mike, who put it out? Did she put it out, or was it like leaked out from somebody that was up in the office? Just throw that in the chat for us. So last week Rob was traveling. I interviewed a friend of mine, and someone Rob knew from the job also, retired Inspector Joe Cortezis. It was a good show. Go back and check that out. Very interesting, good show. I like doing the interviews. And they actually do very well on our channel. So I think, we may be reaching out to some more retired members. And hey, if you're a retired member and you want to come on the show and memorialize your career, reach out to us. Billy Blastoff says he owned the thing, pest control company for 30 years. Either somebody disturbed the raccoon or woke up and she was getting food for herself. Or she was rabid, right? Because they say one of the things about rabid animals is they're out during the day.
Yeah.
Be safe yourself, Mike.
Hold on. Billy Blastoff also says Chief Scagnelli had a zoo in his office of all his trophy hunts, and he did, but he eventually got in trouble. Remember, he had to take them all down.
I have a promotion picture in his office with the animals behind me. Yeah.
Yeah. Now Sleepy Joe saying, "Oh yeah, from her own X account."
I don't know what it's. I don't know the context.
Why now?
I'll take a look at it after the show.
Yeah. Why not under? Adams when she was the PC there. Why all of a sudden now and Mandami? That's for a whole nother show, though.
You have any more questions out there? That's it.
Oh, I didn't see any more.
All right. Well, listen, we really appreciate everybody. We appreciate all the interaction with the chat, another lively discussion. We know, our opinions are our own. They're our perspective. Not going to make everybody happy with them. Not going to agree with them. I have discussions with friends and family members that we don't agree with each other as well. Rob and I don't agree on all the points either, but that's okay. We're here to just discuss it and to get your input and to get you in with it as well. Closing thoughts before we put out the rest of the shows.
I think Mike Freed said that. Sleepy Joe said it was the Holocaust remembrance. She said that's why she put it there. So I mean, if it has some religious implications to it for a particular time period, then I have no problems with that at all. So and then Mike Freed said for you to read with the video. So I don't know if there's some sort of video going on for the Holocaust remembrance. So then I totally agree with it. I do not disagree at all with it. Then that's fine. So.
Yeah, I'll check it out. We'll both check it out after.
Yeah. So anyway,
it's Mike and Cali. I'm guessing that's Mike in California, right? Mike in CA 3762 is he's talking about Scagnelli and has information about Scagnelli. So another retired member that went across the country, maybe.
I don't know. Did he have a tip cup?
I never saw it. I knew Mike Scagnelli pretty well. I never saw it.
So yeah, I just want to thank everybody in the chat. Appreciate all the conversations, all your input. Definitely helps us out while we're doing the podcast. You help us out, give us the information. You correct us when we're wrong. We're not perfect. I'll always say I love to get criticized, and I love to be told if I'm wrong. I have no problem with that. And I think every supervisor, every boss should be the same, right? And so that idiot chief in Minneapolis is wrong, and he needs to be told it.
Sleepy Joe, that's next. And I'm used to being told I'm wrong. I get it every day.
No.
Let's go to the super chats.
Wait, we're both married. We've been told wrong all the time.
Yeah. So we had 2 today. We appreciate the coffee and donuts, as they say on the Day Show, or as Sleepy Joe said, the Twizzlers and Diet Coke, as Rob has coined it. But we have Modern Samurai, our friend and avid supporter of the show. We really appreciate you. Hey, Chief Inspector, hope you guys are staying warm and taking care of yourselves. Some Cash teeth for you. God bless you guys and everyone you love. Take that and buy some calcium chloride for this. There's another storm coming up Saturday, right?
Yeah.
And then Sleepy Joe, just a 555. Appreciate that, my friend. Appreciate your support always in the chat. No warning shots and no hog tying. Don't know why the latter has always stuck with me. That's right. And I think you said in the chat also, I think it's time hog tying. Well, somebody said that. It might have been you. I think it's time hog tying can actually come out of the patrol.
Yeah,
I don't think we need to have that in there.
Somebody in the chat said it should be taken out, though. But you know what? Here's the problem. Every one of those things in the patrol guide is a reason that somebody did something. So you take it out, and the next thing you know, you're going to see somebody hogtied again. So they got it just like the gross mutton chops. What the hell's a gross mutton chop, right? The beard down here. That who does that? Who does that anymore? So I get a religious exemption for a gross mutton chop.
Yeah. So. All right. Well, again, thank you, everybody. Coming up on Friday will be the roundtable with John, Eric, and Marlon, where they'll just try and keep up with all the news that's going on inside New York City, as well as around the country, as they always do. Do a great job covering that and local politics. Then they'll be back on Monday for the regular show, 0805 on this network. And then Tuesday at 7:05, Tommy Joyce and Pete Fuselli will have another great show. They bring in people from all around the country. And they had another great show last night, like like Rob had mentioned, go back and check out the repeat on that one. They had a gentleman, I don't have his name in front of me, I'm sorry, but he's former head of Interpol, as well as many other. He was a U.S. Marshal for decades. So there's some great stories on some apprehensions and stories about him going through doors. And the first time he went through a door, he kicked his foot through the door and he had to be pulled out. So good stuff. So, go back and check that out, and then check them out again on Tuesday at 7:05 p.m. here on the Finest Unfiltered Network. And then we will be back, Rob and I will be back next Wednesday at 5:05 p.m. With the next episode of The Executive Perspective. Until then, everyone, be safe. We appreciate you out there.
Thank you.